Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon. We have quite a lot to get to today, so we're going to waste no time bringing in our guest. He is a journalist. I know most of you, in fact, all of you who watch the show on a regular basis have read his work. I know that because I've read much of his work to you on this show. He is, of course, the editor of antiwar.com, Dave DeCamp. Dave, great to see you.
Hey, Keaton. Hey, Russell. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming, Dave.
Of course. Thanks so much for coming. It's great to see you. Excuse me. Yeah, we feature a lot of your work and the work of your colleagues on this show quite often. And one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on today, obviously, these days it's always good to talk to someone from antiwar.com, since there's certainly no shortage of material for you to cover out there now. But another reason why we thought today was a good time is because you guys are doing a fundraising push now. So for those who are not familiar with the website, this is a fantastic resource for the kind of news that we're into and that all of you in the audience are into. Just a tremendous amount of output per day, and it's entirely reader supported. So every dollar will be matched. Support antiwar.com. Today. I know, the stuff you guys do is so important and so useful just to aggregate all the information that's out there and get it out so quickly. You do a lot of it. Obviously, you guys have a team who does a lot of it. What is a work day like for you? Because there's so much coming at you and you get so much out so quickly every day.
Well, first, I really appreciate you plugging the fundraiser like that. That's great. And I love that you guys use our work. We're big fans of Do Dissidents. I know for any kind of independent media, it's tough. Fundraising is tough. Getting money is tough. So I appreciate it. But a typical work day for me. So I'm the news editor.
We find helps if you have bookcases as your backdrop. So you might want to think about that. We see you've gone with pictures.
Yeah, art makes you look sophisticated as well. Books, art, same thing. It's culture. Culture's culture.
Well, I mean, according to Rand, bookcases are the best way to raise money.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. My bookcase is a mess, so I got to clean it up a bit, I guess.
There you go. So a typical work day. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm the news editor, so I'm basically the newsman. And, I start my day just looking, kind of reading all the mainstream press at first, checking all the big papers, New York Times, Washington Post, and everything like that. And we have a database, a link database, and Margaret Griffiths, who works for us, she basically goes through all the different sites and plugs in all the stories. And I basically sort through like hundreds of news stories every day and try to figure out what's the most important news for us, related to U.S. foreign policy. And then, I write up my short coverage of it from our kind of, unique anti-war, non-interventionist perspective. And a lot of my job is sometimes just kind of cutting out the war propaganda that's inserted into these stories, or in other cases, inserting the proper context and just calling things what they are, instead of kind of beating around the bush or trying to misrepresent things. And yeah, so I usually write, my average is like 6 articles a day this week. Before I had kids, sometimes I would get up to 10 a day, but that hasn't happened in a while.
6 a day?
Yeah, they're short though. I mean, it's usually just a few hundred words, but
Wow.
No, but it's insane. I mean,
that's impressive.
The output is insane, and what you talk about is something that we talk about too a lot as, independent media people. We always say you can't boycott mainstream media because they have the resources to go out and do reporting. You have to be able to parse out the perspective of mainstream media, get the information without being brainwashed by the message that they're trying to embed within that. And that's one of the reasons why we use your work so often, because you do that for us. When we use a Washington Post article, we get yelled at by the audience. Well, why do you use the Washington Post article? So, well, here you have it. So Dave uses the Washington Post articles too. He just filters out the bullshit so that we get the information without all of the propaganda. But it's true. Like today, we're covering later on the show the Israeli settlers who attacked the filmmaker behind the No Other Land documentary, and the AP writes that he was previously threatened by the same group of settlers who used profanity towards him. No, they didn't just use profanity towards him. They threatened to sexually assault his wife, and it's on the video. But that's the perspective, right? So they'll give you information, but they won't give you the complete information. They won't give you all of the perspective, and that's where you come in. And it is such an impressive, piece of output. So you go through, you write about 6 or now about 6 per day. And you also do some actual like journalism, some reporting. Like we're going to cover a story in a minute where you got to talk to one of the sources. So how much of that do you do versus aggregating what's out there and packaging it in a way that is digestible for people like us?
Yeah, I mean, most of it is aggregating, the stuff that's available online. And then, I have some original reporting occasionally. It's something I want to kind of focus on more, is doing more original reporting. But, kind of like you said, the output, we try to get stuff out, kind of quick. And I mean, there's times where I decide to write something and I have to have it done in like a half hour or something. So that doesn't give me time to like talk to sources and stuff. But I kind of want to make a point, maybe in the future to focus on certain things for original reporting. But yeah, most of it. And like you mentioned, the situation with the No Other Land director basically getting lynched by Israeli settlers. That was one thing yesterday I didn't have time to write. So like we link, because one thing that's nice about our setup is that we also link to other sites. And a lot of times, I think we have like a gray zone. We linked to a gray zone article in the top news section today. But for that one, I linked to the Guardian article because it seemed like the best out of the coverage of it that we had available at the time. Right. Which that's kind of nice. So if I find something that's good, then I'm like, all right, that's one less thing that I have to cover. But yeah, a lot of it. And we have, other guys, Jason Ditz, who he writes some original stuff for us, and Kyle Anzalone, who's our opinion editor. He's been getting into the news lately because it's like, I mean, it's just been crazy, as you guys know. It's like, I feel like my head's like on a swivel.
It's crazy. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And I think what we do is kind of a unique thing. Like there's not many kind of independent news sites with like a kind of the news section that we have. And we see it. I mean, it's awesome. Like seeing you guys use it. I see it. Caitlin Johnstone's always quoting us. Jimmy Dore's been using us a lot. Ron Paul uses us all the time. And it's like a big spectrum of, it's pretty cool. And we have a letter coming out later this week from John Mearsheimer, because he reads antiwar.com. Like, I'm always kind of amazed. Like,
very cool.
We have like a relatively small like audience, but we have like pretty prominent, like a lot of media people or journalists, researchers really benefit from our site a lot.
Well, you've been around enough. You have credibility. You get shit right. That's very important, because we need to be able to trust what we go with. But also, there are a lot of cases where, how when a story will be unfolding, whatever, CNN will have, there's been an attack here by such and such a group, and they won't have an article about it. They'll just have live updates. There'll be a little blurb every 30 minutes that comes out. That's really impossible for us to use. It's just too much to keep track of. It's too much to have to keep track of in real time. So what's great about what you guys do is you put everything in nice, neat little articles, right? Nothing complicated about it. It's a super useful service that you guys provide. It's really, really important. And so where do people go to make a donation? Just go to antiwar.com.
Yeah, you could go to antiwar.com/donate, and you can see the different ways that you could help us out there.
All right. Antiwar.com/donate. Russell, sorry, were you going to say something?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, there's the link there. Antiwar.com/donate. Like I said, all very, very familiar with your work and very fond of it. So please go and check that out. All right. Don't worry. That's not the end of your interview, Dave. That's just the end of that clip. So I wanted to put a nice button on it, keeping you around a little longer. I want to get into some of your work. So we're here with Dave DeCamp from antiwar.com. You actually had some original reporting involved in this piece. So obviously the horrors continue in Gaza. American surgeon says Israeli strike on Gaza hospital could have killed him. Dr. Feroz Sidwa told antiwar.com he was on his way to treat a 16-year-old boy who was killed in the strike before being pulled into the ICU. So we'll read a little bit of this. Dr. Feroz Sidwa, an American trauma surgeon volunteering in Gaza, told antiwar.com that he came close to being hit by an Israeli airstrike that targeted the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis on Sunday night and killed a 16-year-old boy he was treating. Sidwa said that he was on his way to the male surgical ward, which was hit by the Israeli airstrike, when someone asked him to help with a patient who was bleeding in the ICU. So I went in there and helped, and about 10 minutes later, the explosion happened, Sidwa said. So I probably would have been standing right next to Ibrahim, the boy who died. Sidwa said that he planned to change the boy's medical dressing. I probably would have been standing next to him and talking to his family when that explosion happened if they hadn't pulled me into the unit like that, he said. Sidwa said that he planned to change the boy's medical dressing. Oh, sorry, that was a repeat. The bombing also killed Ismail Barhoum, a member of Hamas's political bureau, who was being treated at the hospital. The Israeli military took credit for the strike and said Barhoum was the target. So they admitted to just bombing a hospital because there was a Hamas target inside. You actually talked to Feroz. It's funny, we almost had Feroz on the show. We were supposed to, and then he got called into surgery, as sometimes happens with doctors. And we were never able to piece it together because obviously he's extremely busy. Hopefully we get to have him on someday. So did he reach out to you? Did you reach out to him to see if he was okay after this happened?
Yeah. I reached out to him. I was actually on my way back. I was just in a thing for New York, and someone texted me that the Nasser hospital was bombed, which is where Feroz was. So I reached out to him, and he got back to me the next day. You know, I think Feroz, I interviewed him last year for my show. He got my attention. He volunteered in Gaza for the first time last year. And when he got back, he got together with other American healthcare workers who volunteered there. And they found out that they had very similar experiences. One of the things that really, got my attention was that they were all saying that they treated Palestinian children like toddlers with gunshot wounds to the head and to the chest, and sometimes twice. And there's nothing unintentional about that. So he's really a heroic guy, because he got a lot of attention on this. And I really think, like, when they look back at this time in history, some of the strongest evidence for that people should have known that there was a genocide underway is these accounts from these American doctors and healthcare workers who come back and say that, the things that they witnessed. People should listen to Palestinians, but the fact is Americans are much more likely to take that more into account, hearing that from an American.
Right.
And, they're essentially acting as journalists. Right now, Feroz, he's amazing. He's in this hospital. He's been under bombardment, and he's been treating people and basically, speaking, doing all this press. He's basically working as a doctor and a journalist. And so, that's a close call. You heard the story from him. He could have been killed in this strike, and Israel took credit for it. And, the point that Feroz made to me, which is, a very obvious point, this is a member of Hamas's political bureau. There's no allegation that he was engaged in any kind of militant activity at the hospital.
Right.
He was being treated at the hospital. I mean, would it ever be acceptable to the U.S. or Israel if Netanyahu was hit while he was recovering from his recent prostate surgery in the hospital?
Right.
I mean, and so it's just completely outrageous. And the thing was called for is for the U.S. to stop giving bombs to Israel, of course, because I mean, imagine just being there, being an American, and seeing the consequences of your government supplying all these weapons to Israel. I also had a story from him the first night Israel restarted the massive bombings last week, and he said, he detailed some just horrific stories of children he treated. He said that virtually everybody that he operated on were women and children, and it's just completely crazy that this is going on, and all being 100% funded, supported, and enabled by the U.S. government.
Well, what's so amazing about this, and especially infuriating about this, is that they knew one of their targets, like you said, a member of the political bureau. Let's just say it was a militant, it was a combatant, and they wanted him dead. They've raided hospitals before, so a person is in there being treated. They're not shacked in there with weapons, and they don't pose an immediate threat. You can't send personnel in there to arrest, to detain, whatever you're going to do to the one person. You drop a bomb, you conduct an airstrike on the hospital knowing you're going to kill innocent patients and their doctors. They just clearly don't care. And what is, to my knowledge at least, unique about this one is they took credit for it. Usually they try to deny it. Usually they try to say, remember when they laid siege to Al-Shifa Hospital? They said it's because there were tunnels under it, and then the Washington Post did an investigation and found out that there was no evidence to back their claims. This, they just come out, the day after? Yeah, we did it because there was one guy in there who we wanted. So we just fired on a hospital with a missile.
Yeah, and destroyed the whole surgical ward.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked the State Department, I tried to word it in a way that they would maybe give me an answer. I just sent the question to the State Department explaining the situation. The guy was killed. Israel took credit for it, according to an American surgeon. It destroyed the surgical ward, killed a 16-year-old boy. And then I just asked, does the U.S. support this strike and other Israeli targeting of hospitals? And they actually got back to me today. I think I sent it Sunday night.
Yeah, you posted this on your X, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a long, word salad, not answering the question. And it's not a no. It's basically just trying to put all the blame on Hamas, even though it's Israel launching an airstrike on a hospital. And yeah, I mean, it goes to show. It's just, I think they believe they have, with this Trump administration, they just have total impunity. I mean, they could just do whatever they want. And that is the messaging. This woman, the new State Department spokeswoman, Tammy Bruce, her line the other day was, I forget exactly what it was, but it was something like, we stand in Israel in every circumstance, basically, no matter what they do, we're behind them.
Do you on that score, being in this space, now certainly you already had the Biden administration weaponizing the government against journalists. You had here in New York, other places around the country, journalists who were just covering events being arrested, who were covering Palestine protests. This administration has made it very clear that they have absolutely no regard for due process, for legal processes, for the Constitution, for checks and balances. They're doing everything that they can to test what they can get away with in terms of conflating peaceful protest with terrorism and so on. Do you worry as a journalist in this space? Because right now they're going after the big fish, law firms they have an issue with. Are you worried eventually they're going to get around to people like you who specialize in reporting on Israel, which clearly owns the government and particularly this administration?
Yeah, I mean, it is worrying. I'm not worried about myself at the moment because there's obviously people in much worse, situations than us. But, you look at Mahmoud Khalil. I mean, the justification for deporting him is not that he committed a crime. It's basically that he was involved in activity that was contrary to U.S. foreign policy. And of course, the line is that he's a Hamas supporter, terrorist supporter. And even though, I mean, I've seen no public evidence that he's expressed support for Hamas. Even if he did, I mean, that should be protected under the First Amendment. But it's just making it very clear that the administration, and I think this is part of why they're taking such a heavy hand right away is they're, for the chilling effect. It is
Right.
making it very clear that the administration would view me as, a terrorist supporter, basically, because
Right.
of my
Exactly.
views on U.S. foreign policy. So yeah, no, it's unsettling what's happening, and kind of the vibe again, just like on Twitter, on X, like I tweeted something out, basic civil liberties, First Amendment stuff about Mahmoud, and just all the people call me a terrorist supporter, Hamas. It's just like, it feels like the climate is very it's just unsettling, like I said. And I think right now what we've seen from the Trump Justice Department, this new anti-Semitism task force, the guy who's leading it, I think his name's Leo Terrell. He's like an attorney. He's saying that he's going to put Hamas supporters, what he calls Hamas supporters, in jail. And he's not talking about foreigners when he says that. He's talking about, American college students. I think right now they're trying to figure out a way to put Americans in jail for protesting against Israel. That's what this is all about. It's like really, the twofold thing that's going on here: unlimited support for no matter what atrocities Israel commits, and then a civil liberties crackdown on behalf of Israel here at home.
Yes.
I mean, it is really concerning.
Well, and you're seeing the universities who, for all of their rhetoric, at the end of the day, have just been money grubbing whores all along. None of them taking a stand. They're all terrified of losing this federal funding. So far, we haven't seen any of them say, you know what, we'll retrench and maintain our integrity and forego the funding. We'd rather not have the funding. Not one of them. Not one of them. They were so outspoken about their values until they started threatening to cut off federal funding. And now they're all falling in line. Colombia is banning masks, doing whatever the administration wants them to do. And it's chilling in what it tells you about what all these institutions will do in response to having the government weaponized against them, including institutions, corporations that host us. What happens when they go after the servers that host your site? Not trying to bring you down, man. I'm just
Yeah, no,
Well,
I mean,
go ahead, Dave.
well, it's funny because I was talking to my boss Eric, and he asked me to write a fundraising letter, and I wrote it about this, and we both kind of decided it was like a little too depressing, like what I was saying, because it is like, sitting and thinking about it, it's just like it's going in a really kind of scary direction. And I mean, we're a nonprofit. There was recently a bill.
Right. You're a 501c.
Yeah, that they would take away nonprofit status of quote unquote terrorist supporters, and again they would consider us that. They've made that clear.
Right.
So if that gets through and that becomes law, I mean, yeah, that could really impact us.
Well, the thing is, I mean, Greenwald just released a short video on this that's especially infuriating in this context, is that, MAGA really took pride in distinguishing itself and its incarnation of the Republican Party from the George W. Bush incarnation of the Republican Party. Except now they're doing exactly what George Bush and his gang of criminals did, which is essentially moving, I would argue, much more aggressively even than George W. Bush, to criminalize all dissent.
Yep.
Yeah, and also they just started bombing Yemen again. I mean, getting directly involved again in the Middle East. And again, seeing the justification for it, just people kind of, the MAGA movement, with some exceptions, but for the most part, just falling in line and being like, oh yeah, we got to defend the shipping lanes, as if that's what this is about.
Right.
And
right.
Yeah, it really does. Like, it feels like that. I was pretty young. I was I was 11 or 12 when 9/11 happened, but I remember like the years following, like kind of the atmosphere. And it does really feel like that right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. And they were supposed, they made huge hay out of the big government overreach of George W. Bush. And yet here they are, really, I would say, amplifying that paranoia already, not even 100 days in. It seems like we're in a climate of more paranoia than even the post 9/11 George W. Bush era, which is really incredible. I want to move on here because you mentioned that doctors, American doctors in Gaza, are having to not only act as doctors, but as journalists. So here is Feroz Sidwa and Mark Perlmutter schooling CNN, really shaming the American media on just how they have failed to cover this crisis in the way that now, as you mentioned, Dave, earlier in the previous segment, doctors are being forced to.
Performed by the
Sorry.
And the whitewashing performed by the American and Western European legacy media is directly responsible for 100% of the 100,000 kids that are acknowledged to be dead or which have yet to be found because they're buried under the rubble. And if the media cannot acknowledge, for example, that 1948 even happened and educate their viewership about the sequela of that, then you're not going to either investigate or report on the babies that were buried alive in the mass grave that's not even 100 yards from me. The issue is that when it's a thunderstorm in Palestine since 1948, and Israel says it's sunny outside, the American and Western media, I'm not picking on you specifically, but the media in general, says it's an absolutely beautiful day.
So you're an independent journalist. What does it say, Dave, about the state of the American media that it falls to two doctors? This isn't even their field. It falls to two doctors to basically school CNN on their complicity in not doing the basics of their job.
Yeah, I mean, I think it says a lot. And like what Dr. Perlmutter has been through, with him, you could really tell in his interviews when he first came back that he was really affected by his time in Gaza. And it's kind of, I don't know what his view on the situation was before, but I mean, the fact that just an American going in there and seeing those atrocities, of course you're going to be shocked, and understanding how complicit the U.S. is in this. I mean, that is what should drive all journalists to kind of expose U.S. complicity and these war crimes that are being committed with support from the U.S. I mean, yeah, I mean, it just says it is a really kind of sorry state of affairs that it is up to these guys to do this. And like I don't even see, like, I don't know about you guys. I don't pay too much attention to kind of the political scene in Congress and everything. But it also, besides kind of the bad media coverage, like I just don't even see any real opposition among the Democrats. I thought maybe that would grow now that this is Trump's taken over. But it almost seems like this is barely even a blip on the radar with all kind of the other domestic stuff that's happening. I mean, obviously Chuck Schumer is Mr. Israel, but I would think to see more Democrats kind of coming out against this, but I just haven't seen that.
Yeah, the most you're seeing is some tepid defense of Mahmoud Khalil, and they're even couching that in, now I don't agree with what he says, but I don't think he should be deported. And you're also seeing like CNN, I think Abby Phillips pressed, I forget who it was, Scott Jennings and some Long Island, some Nassau County executive. That was a funny clip that went kind of viral. Yeah. Just basically arguing for due process, which, to be honest, I don't know if they'd have made that argument under Joe Biden. I really don't know. Under Biden, they may have just let that go. Maybe because it's Trump, they're pushing back a little bit. But this really reveals the sort of bipartisan foreign policy consensus in this country in a huge way. I mean, I think you're probably seeing slightly more pushback under Trump than you would under Biden, but not all that much. Not all that much. And from the Democratic officials, higher up, meaning, House members, senators, very, very little, almost none.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, it just feels like there's no real momentum in Washington, like on, going against this stuff at all. And that's pretty discouraging, because I thought maybe it would grow because they could make this, about Trump now. And then also with the media, I mean, I know you guys want to get into the Israel killing more journalists in Gaza. I mean, wouldn't you think like any reputable media outlet would want to express their opposition to the U.S. supporting this mass killing of journalists. I mean, at this like unprecedented level. And
I mean, after Assange, none of that surprises me. Like
yeah,
the fact that so few of them spoke out about Julian Assange. Yeah.
No. I mean, they're not going to speak out about Israel. They're all careerists. I mean, this is what I have the book behind me here. This is what Taibbi wrote about so well in Hate Inc. Nobody has to come and tell you what you can and can't report on. You figure it out by who gets promoted, who gets the plum assignments. By the time they get to the level that they'd really be mouthpieces for these huge corporate outlets, you don't have anyone of that kind of quality who's really going to take a stand. And on the rare occasion you get one like that, like Dylan Ratigan, who's going to go on the air and go off in one of those outlets, they're gone.
Yep, exactly. All right, well, that's a good segue. Let's get into this piece about the killing of journalists. So I'll set this up. We're here, of course, with Dave DeCamp from antiwar.com, who has this piece out. As of yesterday afternoon, Israeli military kills 2 more journalists in separate attacks in Gaza. Israeli strikes killed Hassam Shabbat, a reporter for Al Jazeera, and Mohammed Mansour, a correspondent for Palestine Today TV. On Monday, the Israeli military killed 2 journalists in Gaza in separate attacks, continuing the IDF's rampant targeting of Palestinian reporters. Mohammed Mansour, a correspondent for Palestine Today TV, was killed by an Israeli airstrike on a home near the southern city of Khan Yunis. 2 women were also killed by the attack. In northern Gaza, 23-year-old Hassam Shabbat, a reporter for Al Jazeera, was killed by an airstrike on his car. Shabbat was also a contributor to the American news site DropSite News. He was previously put on a kill list by the IDF, which accused him of being a terrorist, of course, without providing evidence. Jeremy Scahill, one of the co-founders of DropSite News, tweeted this out yesterday morning. Israel publicly put Hassam on a kill list, and he would receive threatening calls and warnings. He saw his friends murdered, yet he never ceased his journalism, his absolute dedication to showing the world the reality of the Israeli genocide against the Palestinians of Gaza. Once again, 23 years old. According to Gaza's government media office, the deaths of Mansour and Shabbat brought the total number of journalists killed by Israel in Gaza since October 2023 to 208. The Palestinian Journalist Syndicate described Israel's actions as the, quote, deadliest massacre against journalists in modern history, amidst an alarming international silence and disgraceful complicity with the crimes of the occupation. Now, DropSite published a few videos of their colleague, and I'm going to show you one of them here. We're sharing below clips of journalist Hassam Shabbat, whom Israel assassinated in northern Gaza earlier today. He was a role model to Gaza's children, especially those aspiring to become reporters. So here's this video.
عنك استشهدت؟ ليه؟ شو ليش؟ ما فات الجودة على الشمال. كنا نعيط عليك والله. لهالدرجة؟ بتنام بايش؟ لا اله الا الله. والله نزل علي. قسما بالله العلي العظيم نزل علي. اشتقتي لنا يعني؟ والله اشتقت لنا. جدع. ايش بدك تصيري لما تكبري؟ صحفية. بقول كيف بدي اصير صحفية واسم شمالته يستشهد. كيف بدي اصير صحفية؟ لا ليش نستشهد؟ لا يبعد الشر عنك. كيف بدي اصير صحفية سعيدة؟ لا بنسويك صحفية. بدك صحفية تصيري؟ ان شاء الله. بتصير صحفية. يلا سلام. يلا سلام.
Heartbreaking, obviously. Khaleesi tweets, journalist Hassam Shabbat's final message. So this was taken from DropSite. So this is the real deal statement here. If you're reading this, it means I've been killed, most likely targeted by the Israeli occupation forces. When this all began, I was only 21 years old, a college student with dreams like anyone else. For the past 18 months, I have dedicated every moment of my life to my people. I documented the horrors in northern Gaza minute by minute, determined to show the world the truth they tried to bury. I slept on pavements, in schools, in tents, anywhere I could. Each day was a battle for survival. I endured hunger for months, yet I never left my people's side. By God, I fulfilled my duty as a journalist. I risked everything to report the truth, and now I am finally at rest. Something I haven't known in the past 18 months. I did all this because I believe in the Palestinian cause. I believe this land is ours, and it has been the highest honor of my life to die defending it and serving its people. I ask you now, do not stop speaking about Gaza. Do not let the world look away. Keep fighting, keep telling our stories until Palestine is free. For the last time, Hassam Shabbat from northern Gaza. It's just, it's almost too much to even do on the air, honestly. The courage these people have to know they're probably going to die. I mean, he prepared a statement with knowledge that the odds of him making it through this were not good. And yet, as you just said, Dave, before we cut in on this segment, you have almost silence from mainstream media in this country who are supposed to, supposedly devoted to the craft and the cause of journalism. Hardly anyone saying anything about this. You have any comment on that? We have some more.
Yeah, I mean, but this kid, I mean, he was 23 years old, and it's especially sad just because he was someone who I've followed basically through this whole thing, because he had he was pretty active on X, and he reported for Drop Site, so I was very aware. He had a very recognizable face and look to him, and I just really followed him, and he just looked like a nice young guy. And two of his friends were killed, I think, last year in airstrikes, and he was put on that kill list. And yeah, it didn't stop him. And the IDF admitted that they targeted him. This was a direct assassination of a journalist. And there's no way around that. I mean, of course, the accusation is that he was a terrorist, but I mean, there's just absolutely no evidence for that. And yeah, I mean, it's just horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a prolific journalist. I mean, that accusation, of course, is just nonsense on its face. He's been doing journalism nonstop for the last year and a half. He hasn't been fighting even. So Drop Site News issued a statement. You can read this on their site. This is lengthy, so we're not going to read this now. But the takeaway, obviously, is we hold, both Israel and the U.S. government responsible, which, Dave, as you just said, that's not a stretch. Israel put him on a kill list. Now, as for Mohammed Mansour, this is another really tough video to take, but this is Mohammed's father grieving over him. So he has passed on in this video. That's why Al Jazeera blurred out his face. But let's take a look at this.
احكي للعالم احكي للعالم احكي انت اللي تحكي الصورة بتعبر حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل خليه يحكي امسك احكي ضلك احكي ضلك احكي يا ريتني صاحب واستمر واقول يا ريتني صاحب واكمل عنك يا ريتني صاحبي واكمل عنك كمان اكمل والله بكمل عنك مستعد اصير صاحبي.
Obviously just horrible. And Dave, you mentioned earlier, there's a new Morlock in town. We used to call Matthew Miller Morlock because he looked like a vampire and talked like a vampire. But hey, at least Morlock made eye contact with reporters when they were asking about these things. Here's the new one. So who is this? Tammy Bruce? Is that her name?
Yeah, I think that's her name.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't know her name. But this is really the first we've seen of her. So these are the new sort of Matthew Miller type briefings. She barely even gives the courtesy of eye contact to the reporter when asking about the murder of these journalists.
Two more journalists, Hassam Shabbat of Al Jazeera Mubasher, Mohammed Mansour of Palestine Today. That brings the number to 208. Each one was individually targeted. The IDF says they used extensive intelligence gathering and precise munitions. Shabbat killed in his car, Mansour in his house. The Committee to Protect Journalists is once again
text
noted
messages.
The targeted killing of journalists is a war crime. Do you have any comment?
I would say that every single thing that's happening is a result of Hamas.
Yeah, so there you have it. So just no accountability whatsoever. Nothing is Israel's fault under any context. This is the new party line. And we knew it would come to this. People, including ourselves. I mean, we were all happy when a ceasefire was negotiated. It was obvious, including the people in Gaza for obvious reasons. But there was always a dark cloud hanging over that ceasefire because it was pretty obvious how it would end. And here we are. And with this crew in town, this is what you're going to get, this kind of stonewalling. This is the difference between Trump and Biden. Under Biden, Matthew Miller would say, Israel's going to investigate and we'll follow up, and they never will. These people are just going to say, nope, sorry. None of it's their fault. None of it's their fault. Fuck you. That's basically the line out of this crew. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, that is what you're going to get. They're not going to pretend like they're upholding the rules-based order or anything. Just going to be more kind of outright with what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, it's just, man. And like you said, I was hopeful too when that ceasefire was reached, but and now you have Steve Witkoff. He's saying the same thing. He's just like, oh, it's all Hamas's fault, even though he supposedly got Israel to sign the deal and they violated the deal that he got them to sign. It just makes you wonder. And I suspected this was possible at the time that he told them, like, sign the deal now. You don't have to implement the whole thing.
No, that's not speculation. I mean, Netanyahu came out when the ceasefire was inked because, believe it or not, as Israeli politics go, Netanyahu is the moderate. Half the country is to his right. And so he came out and said, to save political face, hey, don't worry, Donald Trump basically told us that this is only temporary. And so, yeah, I mean, the writing was on the wall from the time that deal was inked. So, yeah, you're not going out on a limb there. That's well established that Netanyahu made a point to his people, hey, this is only temporary. Yeah.
Yeah, Witkoff, when he went on with Tucker, he said, I think they had no choice but to end the ceasefire. Hamas was being completely unreasonable, which all reports say the opposite.
Yeah, it is. It's just a matter of fact that Israel wanted to extend phase 1 and not go into phase 2 because phase 2 of negotiations would require making a concrete plan for a permanent end to violence. Israel didn't want to agree to a permanent end to violence because Netanyahu's war aims are to obviously eliminate Hamas entirely from the region. And so basically Israel wanted to get as many hostages back without committing to a permanent ceasefire. And once that fell apart, obviously, here we are now. But yeah, I mean, 208 journalists in just over a year and a half. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, Dave. Do you have this information at hand? Is this the deadliest war for journalists in history, at least as a proportion? If not raw numbers.
I think so. I mean, I don't have statistics to look at, but I can't remember or think of anything in history like this, like at this rate, killing journalists. And you see the accusation, and you see people justifying these. The Israel defenders online, they'll post social media post from a journalist that he expressed some kind of support for like resistance, and as if that is justification to kill them. That's like, oh, well, then every pro-war journalist in the U.S., they can be killed in a drone strike, and you would have no problem with that. I mean, it's just totally ridiculous.
Yeah, pretty horrific, pretty awful. But Dave DeCamp, I want to plug your donate link again, antiwar.com/donate. You guys do such valuable work over there. You make our jobs a lot easier. That's for sure. So help Dave, help us by going to antiwar.com/donate. Anything else you'd like to say where people can find you? I know you're on X. Any other plugs you got?
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. And again, I really appreciate you plugging the fundraiser. That's really nice of you to do. People could also check out my show. It's called Anti-War News with Dave DeCamp, where I basically go over the news stories that I write up that day and other stuff. It's like 25 to 30 minutes, kind of a daily update.
And that's on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Dave. Well, hey, like I said, we're big fans of you guys over there, and it was great to meet you. We'd love to have you on again soon. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye-bye. All right, Dave DeCamp, everybody. A round of applause for Dave. Wow, that's a hell of a way to start the show, huh? We usually start off light. Not today. Not today.
I mean, we shot our wad with Snow White.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. Just brutal. Just absolutely brutal. But, you know, Dave lives with that stuff all day, every day. 6 articles a day like that. 6 to 10 pieces a day.
I hadn't seen the stuff that you showed there, man. That was rough.
Yeah. Just absolutely
Father. Oh my God.
Yeah. How could you imagine that? How could you imagine that? Looking over your kid. I mean, it's just. It is. It's unspeakable. It's unspeakable, and you know this is. Look, I hate to keep saying this over and over again, but this is why during the campaign we said things were as bleak as we did, because it's the fucking truth. Right. I'm sorry. I can't spin everything into, hey, this is reason to have hope. No, I'm sorry. The world is not like that. I wish it were. But it's just not the case. It's just not the case, and here we are. And, yeah, what happens when the Trump administration turns genocidal? When the ceasefire that we knew was going to be sabotaged, what happens when that goes away? And now this is happening. And now
it was very obvious from the beginning. He was doing a Reagan inauguration. He wanted good optics.
Right.
Only unlike that, it was temporary.
Yeah.
When the hostages got released with Reagan, that was it. They were released.
Right.
This, you just knew he wanted to get some good headlines. And in the end, even setting aside whatever Trump might have wanted, and I'm not discounting his own deceptions. The Israelis, it was just always obvious Netanyahu was going to get as many hostages as he could and then go back in. Like, there was no world where Netanyahu was going to turn around and say, yeah, okay, well, let's see what we can do now to establish some kind of new government in Gaza. That was never happening.
Of course. Pardon me. All right. We got 1,500 strong on the YouTube side, 664 in the Rumble chat. Thank you guys all for being here today. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the super sticker and the $4.99 over there. Brent Yoendo, thanks for the $3 over there as well. Tuxedo Mask, thanks for the $2. Jewish supremacism equals a global problem. Gaza equals symptom. I would say, yeah, it is. There is certainly a big element of that. It's also just Western chauvinism. You know, it's not only is it Jewish supremacy. In a lot of cases, this is just simply white racism. It is just white European racism. Like, if you believe that essentially a European colony has a right to just set up shop and brutalize the locals, yeah, I mean, is there an element of just rank white racism in that? Yeah, absolutely there is. 100% there is.
Yeah. Yeah, right now I'm actually, because I'm much better on later Greco-Roman history than I am on Mesopotamia and Egypt and really the ancient world that all of this comes out of. And as many will often point out, I mean, these people are all Semites.
Right.
Like arguing that the Jews are the Semites. They're not Semites. The Palestinians are Semites. They're all Semites. They're all part of this tribe. Now, the reason that it's illegal to get a DNA test in Israel without a court order or without a doctor's order is because Palestinians are Semites.
Right, exactly.
The people who came over from Eastern Europe, I mean, the original Jews were Semites. Not many of these are.
Exactly. CEB Applejack, thanks for the $20. Hey, guys, have you heard about the Nazi attacks on the Black Americans in historical safe haven for the Black community in Lincoln Heights, Ohio? RBN had me on to discuss it. Really? Title Black Americans versus Neo-Nazis in Ohio, and live stream. I have not heard about that, but I will definitely.
Who's that from?
That's what I'm at. Yeah, that's my next question. CEB Applejack. So now I'm curious to know who you are, because I don't recognize that name from YouTube world. but I'll definitely look up the live stream. So feel free to introduce yourself if you'd like. But in case we miss it, I will definitely check out that live stream. 100%. Thank you for that. Dwayne Vogel, Israel is Rhodesia. Let's make it Zimbabwe, Palestine. Yeah. Ava, session 7, just a lot of tear emojis. Yeah, I hear you, Ava. Thank you for that donation. Appreciate it. Hillary Hinton says, trying to streamline my poison intake, so I just had a wonderful Teflon and Kraft cheese product omelet with glyphosate and aspartame smoothie. I can feel my cells mutating even as I type this. There you go. Thanks, Hillary.
Dude, I have all ceramic nonstick pans. I don't have any Teflon.
I don't even use nonstick anymore. I'm on stainless steel.
Are you?
Stainless steel, yep. Cooking with stainless steel is very satisfying. It's like driving a stick, you know? You feel like you're really cooking with that stainless steel.
Yeah.
You know, you feel like a real man. It's the closest I ever feel to being a real man is cooking with stainless steel. Ken Texican, thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Ken Texican. Due to OPSEC concerns, it is incumbent upon Special Forces Unit DD-007 to secure space at least until next week. Attention, SecDef, loose lips, sink ships. So for Pete Hegseth's sake, zipper with SIPR. Out. All right. Thank you, Ken Texican. Very generous donation. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. In fact, Hegseth is next on the list. So, you know, we knew we were coming in really heavy and really upsetting. So we wanted to, you know, do a little palate cleanser with a little buffoonery from Pete Hegseth and company. So why don't we go into that now?
All right. You know, we have our own little titles for the slideshows. Mine for this is Hegseth the Drunk.
Hegseth on the sauce.
Hegseth the Drunk. The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. Now, this is Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief at The Atlantic, who apparently was accidentally included on a Signals group chat about operational plans for bombing Yemen. Here are some screenshots of these. Now, what was revealed here is a little bit of daylight between J.D. Vance and the president about doing this, because Vance feels like they're bailing out Europe. 40% of European shipping goes through the Suez and only 3% of American shipping. So here's Vance to Hegseth. If you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. Let's just make sure our messaging is tight here. And if there are things we can do up front to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. Hegseth, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. But Mike is correct, meaning Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, who, according to Goldberg, was the one who invited him to the chat. But Mike is correct. We're the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. Nobody else even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good a time as any, given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go, but POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. And Stephen Miller, presumably here, SM. As I heard it, the president was clear. Green light, but we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe what we expect in return. We also need to figure out how to enforce such a requirement, e.g., if Europe doesn't remunerate, then what? If the U.S. successfully restores freedom of navigation at great cost, there needs to be some further economic gain extracted in return. Agree. So basically, they want to hire out the U.S. military as mercenaries and get the Europeans to pay for it. These are their internal deliberations. According to Goldberg, there were 18 people on this chain, including Tulsi Gabbard, Ratcliffe at the CIA was also on this, and obviously the vice president, Hegseth, and so on. So here's where it gets really explosive, literally. At 11:44 a.m., the account labeled Pete Hegseth posted in Signal a team update. I will not quote from this update or from certain other subsequent texts. The information contained in them, if they had been read by an adversary of the United States, could conceivably have been used to harm American military and intelligence personnel, particularly in the broader Middle East Central Command's area of responsibility. What I will say, in order to illustrate the shocking recklessness of this Signal conversation, is that the Hegseth post contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the U.S. would be deploying, and attack sequencing. Now, he doesn't include the details, but kind of high fives here. Ratcliffe there, Waltz, Marco Rubio was also on this chain. Good job, Pete, and your team. So high fives all along, American flag, all that.
Yeah, those three emojis really tell the story of the state of the empire right there. That's America.
So after he realized, because this entire time, according to Goldberg, he wasn't sure if this was real. He wasn't sure if somebody was trying to entrap him or fool him. But the operational directives that he received included the time that Yemen would start getting bombed. And when that happened on that time scale, he exited the chat. After that, he emailed people. I emailed Waltz and sent him a message on his Signal account. I also wrote to Pete Hegseth, John Ratcliffe, Tulsi Gabbard, and other officials. In an email, I outlined some of my questions. Is the Houthi PC small group a genuine Signal thread? Did they know that I was included in this group? Was I, on the off chance, included on purpose? If not, who did they think I was? That's funny. Like, nobody noticed there's somebody. Hey, who is that? Who's this Jeffrey Goldberg on this chain? And Pete Hegseth, according to the article, right before they really started going into the operational details, assured everyone on the chain that OPSEC, operational security, was in place for this chain.
Yeah.
If not, who did they think I was? Did anyone realize who I was when I was added or when I removed myself from the group? He also points out in the article, even after he exited, nobody noticed. Running a tight ship over there.
And why is he such a brown noser? You know, Max wrote a Gray Zone article about this. He just dropped it. Like, if you're about to get good shit, you're a journalist, stay in. Keep your listening post. But no, he's a good boy. He wants to write in the Atlantic what a good boy he was. I left and started emailing people.
To be fair with this crew, he probably didn't want to wind up in El Salvador.
Yeah, didn't want to.
To senior,
I guess
he didn't want to be anyone's girlfriend in an El Salvadoran prison. Do senior Trump administration officials use Signal regularly for sensitive discussions? Do the officials believe that the use of such a channel could endanger American personnel? Brian Hughes, the spokesman for the National Security Council, responded 2 hours later, confirming the veracity of the Signal group. Quote, "This appears to be an authentic message chain, and we are reviewing how an inadvertent number was added to the chain," Hughes wrote. "The thread is a demonstration of the deep and thoughtful policy coordination between senior officials. The ongoing success of the Houthi operation demonstrates that there were no threats to troops or national security." Well, there were no threats because you got Jeffrey Goldberg and not somebody who would have used the information that way. Certainly, it was through no fault of the people on that chain that there was no threat to the military. William Martin, a spokesperson for Vance, said that despite the impression created by the texts, it's funny, this is what they thought was important to put out there. The vice president is fully aligned with the president. Quote, "The vice president's first priority is always making sure that the president's advisors are adequately briefing him on the substance of their internal deliberations. Vice President Vance unequivocally supports this administration's foreign policy. The president and the vice president have had subsequent conversations about this matter in complete agreement." Well, that's what's really important here. So, of course, Pete Hegseth was asked about this. And first he went to the old game we call attack the source.
One question.
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in the Atlantic? And were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was...
Okay, so
hey, listen, I used to send broads pictures of my cock all day, every day. I never accidentally sent one to the wife. I know what I'm doing with the text message threads, okay? Trust me, no one gets in one of my threads unless I know about it.
My wife was never once able to breach Signal's encrypted security.
Exactly.
So he tries to get away with a game of blame the source. Then he tries to talk about what a great job they're doing. But the reporter asking the questions was not having it. Again, she tries to get a straight answer.
As we speak, from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
The NSC said it was authentic.
All right, so the reporter points that out. He also got community noted, and Jeffrey Goldberg sat down with CNN to address his contention that no war plans were shared.
That nobody was texting war plans. Given you were privy to this group chat, is that how you saw it?
No, that's a lie. He was texting war plans. He was texting attack plans. When targets were going to be targeted, how they were going to be targeted, who was at the targets, when the next sequence of attacks were happening. I didn't publish this, and I continue not to publish it because it felt like it was too confidential, too technical, and I worry, honestly, that sharing that kind of information in public could endanger American military personnel. But no, they were plans for the attack. And they were texted before the attack.
And there were things texted that you viewed as so sensitive, you did not even publish them in your report today.
I made the decision that the technical aspects of this, including what kinds of weapons packages, the attack sequencing, and so on, that's not necessarily in the public interest. What's in the public interest is that they were running a war plan on a messaging app and didn't even know who was invited into the conversation. I mean, it's an obvious, ridiculous security breach, and he if you notice, he didn't actually answer the question.
So
JD Vance says he was picking up a case of PBR and 8 couch cushions, and who was in. I didn't know what that meant.
And what was really tough about it was he had to stop JD Vance from fucking the couch cushion to get it. So they say it comes from the top. So they ask Donald Trump about this report. He claims not to know anything about it.
President, your reaction to the story in The Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis? Right. Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
That is one steady hand on the tiller. Now, it's also pointed out in the Atlantic article that the people on this chain broke several laws in all likelihood. For example, conceivably Waltz, by coordinating a national security related action over Signal, may have violated several provisions of the Espionage Act, which governs the handling of national defense information, according to several national security lawyers interviewed by my colleague Shane Harris for this story. The Signal app is not approved by the government for sharing classified information. The government has its own systems for that purpose. Now, you might remember that Hillary Clinton mishandled classified information, and a lot of people were really up in arms about that. We always felt that she should have been held for account to that, and Comey pussied out. There was somebody else who felt so strongly about that, he promised in 2016 to fully prosecute anyone who mishandled classified information. Let's hear from that guy.
In my administration, I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. No one will be above the law.
No one will be above the law. Well, I guess he has to sack basically his entire national defense team. Now, the MAGA cope on this has been particularly pathetic, even for that crew. Basically, they've been going with the Pee Wee Herman defense, as it's known in the business. It goes something like this.
I meant to do that. I meant to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much where they're going. If you believe for 1 minute that Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Mike Waltz, and J.D. Vance randomly and accidentally added this most rabidly anti-Trump journalist to a national security group chat, you're definitely the mark. These are some of the most competent people in the country. And you believe they would just screw up like this? Simply not possible. This is called media strategy. Trump is famous for stuff like this. Our friend Max just quoted some of the most competent people in the country with a laughing emoji and left it at that. Couple of really good memes going around. I don't always include reporters in unsecure war plan group chats, but when I do, it's because I'm incompetent and drunk. And this one, don't worry, Greenland. One more bottle and he'll text you the invasion plans. Now, we do have some exclusive audio. Goldberg did actually get Hegseth on the phone to ask him about this, but this was all he had to say.
I'm so wasted.
So that was all he said about it. So yeah, crazy story. The cope is almost the most interesting part of the story to me because, you know, they can't say it's not real because the National Security Council admitted it was real. So now they got to go to, they meant to do that, which is just amazing. Just amazing. Why on earth would you want to do it? What would the advantage be to doing that? You could maybe make that argument if they didn't really bomb Yemen at exactly the time they said they were going to. Why would you tell somebody? Why would you? To find your way clear to believing that? Oh, wow. The level of density, you'd have to absorb light to be that dense.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, my take. I'm giving my take in video form here. Here's the ultra competent Pete Hegseth. For those who have not seen this video, this is fucking hilarious. This is back in his Fox News days doing an axe throwing. Watch this.
Who's going to win this battle with the lumberjacks? I'm putting my money on.
No, look it. Watch, it's not over yet. Look where that ended up landing. He almost kills the fucking guy. They had a person competence. Talk about the producer being incompetent. How do you put a marching band behind the axe throwing? This is ultra. This is the picture of competence right here. Pete Higgs
does not at all seem like the kind of guy who would. Does not at all seem like the kind of guy who would totally miss the fact that an uninvited reporter was on a group chat that they should not have been conducting on that platform in the first place about highly sensitive war plans. The Atlantic article also gets into the fact that there's a specific term for it, but each person at that level of the security state has a secure location in their homes to go to if they need to talk about things like this. Like the idea that you would do this possibly on a phone. What if you lose the phone? Like they all broke several laws regarding handling classified information just by being in the Signal chat.
Right. Yeah.
And these are the people we're told are coming to rescue the country and to correct all the sins of their predecessors and fix the way the government works. And they're conducting a highly sensitive war planning on Signal. Incredible.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. And by the way, the plan that they are discussing is the plan to bomb the poorest people on Earth. Yep. Who have
including
just
Tulsi.
endured a
including
genocide.
Tulsi, who had a very different position on that, but she always has a different position on everything. That's what's great about Tulsi. If you don't like one of her positions, go find her saying the opposite. There's something for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I guess to your point, the guy didn't want to end up in CCOT, but it seems to me like someone more committed to the craft would have stuck around and report what he sees. Yeah, but that's the Atlantic for you, right? All right. Noah Linden, thanks for telling it like it is and not grifting for Trump like many other anti-establishment YouTubers. Thank you. I'm from the Jimmy Dore world, says CEB Applejack. I'm an anti-war journo. Okay, well, I would love to. I will definitely check out your appearance on RBN. Thank you for that. Noah Linden, thanks for the $5. Israel, the self-proclaimed state of the Jews, is allied with Trump and Musk, two people who give Nazi salutes. Nothing could be more insane. Yeah, well, it actually doesn't make as little sense as you might think. Ding dong doo doo daddy, I love you, Dave. Say hi to Scott for me. Scott Horton, I assume. Yes, thank you. Ding dong, appreciate that.
Somebody in the chat, in quote, says, axe the drums.
Axe the drums. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what a fucking moron. What a moron. And what a moron. I mean, who produced that thing? You have to clear the way behind the axe throwing. You can't have people set up behind the axe throwing or without like a net there. You just let a guy throw an axe and you almost cut that guy's arms off. If that hit him with the blade, oh, forget it. Get it.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, unless you were an expert.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Axe thrower, like, you don't fuck around with shit like that with people around behind the target.
Middle of 6th Avenue. Yeah. Just insane. Who for Fed to provide better security, the DoD will now use spaces on X instead of Signal. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Abiding 71. I learned on Twitter Jackson Hinkle is a third-generation Joseph Mengele experiment cooked up in an undisclosed NIH lab with funding from Ursula von der Leyen. Wow, what a scoop. Thanks, Abiding. WVP, it's Vito P. Hey, how are you, Vito? I start every morning with a cup of coffee and antiwar.com video. Great interview. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Thank you, Vito. And
Thank you, Vito.
Thanks to Dave. It's great to meet Dave. Great to meet Dave, for sure. And shout out to our friend Eric, who apparently is the head honcho over there. I knew he worked there, but he helped set that up for us. So thanks, Eric. The China Shill, the world is a vampire. Keaton, thank you, China Shill. Appreciate that. Let's see. Javier, thank you, Javier. Thanks for the $4.99. You guys are a lighthouse in a sea of genocidal psychopaths and sympathizers. I'm so demoralized from the lack of empathy in the people around me. It is tough to take, Javier. I sympathize.
Thank you.
Rotten Flesh. You guys gonna address the cover up at Giza Plateau? I don't know what that is. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know what you are referring to there, my friend. Okay, we're gonna clear this, and clear this. Okay, all right, folks. So we're gonna head back in. We're going to now cover another terrible story. This one, thankfully, has for now a happy ending, or at least not a catastrophic ending. So here are the filmmakers behind the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land, about the struggle of Palestinians to defend their homes against Israeli settlers in the West Bank. So here they are accepting their award on the stage. Now, if you look over the speaker's right shoulder there, Hamdan Ballal, that is the filmmaker who was recently attacked by Israeli settlers at his home in the West Bank. And, you know, we can't play any Oscars footage for copyright reasons, but Yuval Abraham, who is the Israeli filmmaker behind that film, mentioned on stage at the Oscars that, you know, he gets to go back home and be safe, but his fellow filmmakers have to go back home and exist under siege. And so the tragic irony of that is that he was proven right very, very quickly. So Yuval Abraham, who is the Israeli co-director of this film, says a group of settlers just lynched Hamdan Ballal, co-director of our film No Other Land. They beat him and he has injuries in his head and stomach, bleeding. Soldiers invaded the ambulance, he called, and took him. No sign of him since. He then clarified, note, Hamdan was assaulted and beaten up, not murdered. My use of lynched was a mistranslation from Hebrew. English isn't my first language. He's injured and being held at a police station in a settlement. They did not let his lawyer speak to him yet, so we don't know more. He has since been released. We'll get to that later in the segment, but just not to leave you in suspense, he has been released and is on his way home. But as we're going to learn in this piece, I wish I could say he's on his way towards, being safe at home. But of course, he's not safe at home because of what this story is. Oscar-winning Palestinian director is attacked by Israeli settlers and detained by the army. The AP writes, and there's a reason we're using the AP, because they get some exclusive quotes from his wife later on. Israeli settlers beat up one of the Palestinian co-directors of the Oscar-winning documentary film No Other Land on Monday in the occupied West Bank before he was detained by the Israeli military, according to two of his fellow directors and other witnesses. Bassel Adra, another co-director, witnessed the detention and said around 24 settlers, some masked, some carrying guns, some in Israeli uniform, attacked the village. Soldiers who arrived pointed their guns at the Palestinians while settlers continued throwing stones. We came back from the Oscars, and every day since there is an attack on us, Adra told the Associated Press. This might be their revenge on us for making the movie. It feels like a punishment. The Israeli military said it detained 3 Palestinians suspected of hurling rocks at forces and 1 Israeli civilian involved in a violent confrontation, quote unquote, between Israelis and Palestinians, a claim witnesses interviewed by the AP disputed. The military said it had transferred them to Israeli police for questioning and had evacuated an Israeli citizen from the area to receive medical treatment. So here is some video from the confrontation. This has received millions of views, and it seems corroborated by Yuval's video himself. It's unclear to me who took this video and what it is of exactly. Of course, there was a large-scale confrontation, but here is some video from the event.
No! Can we go back to the car? Guys, back to the car, back to the car! Back to the car! Get in the car, get in the car! Oi, 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 oi. Get in, go! Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, good thing this window's open. Our window was broken.
Whose car? I can't go. This is a military.
Okay, so again, it's not clear to me exactly who those people are. It's not Hamdan himself because he was transported in an ambulance, and that's obviously just a civilian vehicle. But This is some video time-stamped with yesterday's date and time from Yuval himself. The group of armed KKK-like masked settlers that lynched no other land director Hamdan Ballal, still missing at that time, caught here on camera. So here they are. This looks to be the same. Yeah, same deal. So here they come in masks. See? So no one can identify. These are the settlers, by the way, that Trump lifted the sanctions on. He thought Biden was too mean to these people. He thought these people needed to be let loose to act like fucking animals and attack people in their homes. Just absolute thuggery and gangsterism there. On camera with the timestamp in the bottom left corner. As you can see, March 24th, 2025, 18:29, so 5:29 p.m. Local time. Okay, now, thankfully, day after, he was released. Israel releases Oscar-winning Palestinian director after he was attacked by West Bank settlers. Israeli authorities released an Oscar-winning Palestinian director who was detained by the army after being attacked by Jewish settlers in the occupied West Bank. He said they beat him in front of his home while filming the assault. On Tuesday, with bruises on his face and blood on his clothes, he was released from an Israeli police station in the West Bank settlement of Kiryat Arba. He and two other Palestinians who had been attacked and detained were driven to a nearby hospital. Ballal said he was held at an army base and forced to sleep under a freezing air conditioner. I was blindfolded for 24 hours, he told the Associated Press. All the night I was freezing. It was a room I couldn't see anything. I heard the voice of soldiers laughing about me. Palestinian residents say around 24 settlers, some masked, some carrying guns, and some in military uniforms, attacked the West Bank village of Susaya on Monday evening as residents were breaking their fast during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Yeah, so a lot of these sickos will dress in military uniform to make sure that the Palestinians they're terrorizing don't fight back. Because they will, so that's a tactic that a lot of them use. Some of them just dress like, we just saw, just masked thugs. Soldiers who arrived pointed their guns at the Palestinians, while settlers continued throwing stones, they said. The Israeli military said Monday it had detained 3 Palestinians suspected of hurling rocks at forces and 1 Israeli civilian involved in what it described as a violent confrontation. On Tuesday, it referred further queries to police, who did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Lamia Ballal, the director's wife, said she heard her husband being beaten outside their home as she huddled inside with their 3 children. She heard him screaming, "I'm dying," and calling for an ambulance. When she looked out the window, she saw 3 men in uniform beating Ballal with the butts of their rifles and another person in civilian clothes who appeared to be filming the violence. Of course, after the Oscar, they have come to attack us more, Lamia said. I felt afraid, of course. On Tuesday, a small bloodstain could be seen outside their home, and the car's windshield and windows were shattered. Neighbors pointed to a nearby water tank with a hole in the side that they said had been punched by the settlers. Ballal said he was attacked by a well-known settler who had threatened him in the past. The settler can be seen with other masked men in a widely circulated video from August, meaning August of last year, in which they threaten Ballal. "This is my land. I was given it by God," the settler says in the video, in which he also uses profanity and tries to get Ballal to fight him. "Next time it won't be nice," the settler says. Okay, so this is where, when I was talking to Dave DeCamp earlier, I was saying how, because an outlet like the AP has the resources to actually do this reporting and get these interviews, you can't just not read them. But the key is to read sources like this with a critical eye. So when I heard about this video, I sought it out and I watched it. So here's where, even in a piece like this, which tells the facts of the story reasonably well, as it turns out, the copy here says, the settler says in the video, in which he also uses profanity and tries to get Ballal to fight him. What she leaves out is that the guy threatens to assault, shall we say, on YouTube, his wife. So here is the video in question. Okay, now I'm only going to play the first like 50 seconds of this. There's a piece of this that I'm not even going to show here. But here it is. You can just, if you put on X search, "This is my land. I was given it by God." You can watch this entire video. We're going to show you almost the whole thing, which gives you a very good idea of what this confrontation actually was. So here is the video. So there is Hamdan in the red shirt being confronted by these same settlers, apparently, last summer.
Next time.
Okay, so just what prompted the confrontation: Israeli settlers graze herd in private Palestinian fields. So they let their cows come onto their land, and there was a dispute over that.
Next time someone touches him, my cows.
Why your cows came here?
Why cows? Because this is my land.
But this is my
I
house.
was given it by God and
Shame,
Abraham
shame,
and Isaac, Yaakov.
shame. Hey,
Shut
no.
the fuck up.
This is my house.
Not your house.
This is okay. That's your house.
Yeah.
Okay, you
Tell your crazy witch to go to fuck to the house. Let's go.
Where?
Let's go right now. Show
What
your
you
phone.
want?
Well, I want to dance with you, man.
Dance with me?
I want dancing. You look.
I'm not your bitch.
You look sweet. You are my bitch. And you look sweet. You know. You look so fresh, so sweet.
So he's talking to his wife at that point.
I would be happy to sit with you in a jail someday.
Okay, so that part, that, in the words of the AP, was him using profanity. Not that he threatened to brutalize his wife. Just fucking absolute monsters. Monsters. Absolute just people of no human value, I'll say, whatsoever. Where they are beneath being acknowledged as humans, in my opinion. These people have no humanity in them. And thankfully, of course, Hamdan Ballal is free and is about to go home to his family. Is he free, though? No. He is alive, thank God. And thank God he gets to go home to his family. But that's his home. That's his home. That's how this guy has to live. Where pieces of absolute filth and garbage can come to his house freely, terrorize him and his family, and beat him. And this piece of shit president of ours thinks Joe Biden was being too mean to those people. He lifted the sanctions on those West Bank settlers. So
well,
that's that story for you.
And this is where, when you have these intellectual dark web douchebags going up there and talking about the Muslims as being driven by religious fanaticism while defending Israel. The whole premise of Israel is built around religious fanaticism. It's built around biblical prophecy. It's built around a literal interpretation of a combination of what I would consider myths, folk tales, some elements of history. The whole country is based on that. The whole idea that they have a legitimate claim to that land is a religious claim. It's a biblical claim. And you hear it right here. God gave me this land.
Yep.
And if there's anything we know from history, some of the greatest atrocities that to be considered were committed by people who believed that their atrocities were sanctioned by God. This is part of what allows them to behave this way. Because if you read the Bible, as I have, yeah, man, it's God tells them to go commit a genocide. That's in there. So if you take that as literal, this is what God wants of us. He said, he said, look, the way that I read it, they wanted to take the land. And, the Bible is a mix of historical facts and mythological justification.
Right.
So God gave us this land. There's just one little problem. There's people on it. So God tells them, go commit a 7-nation genocide. That's in there. So if you are taking that as the literal word of God that you're guiding yourself by, of course, this is an extension of the Bible. Now, when they're talking about Islam, they have no problem critiquing Islam and blaming Islam for ideas in the
Right.
Muslim world that they feel they don't like, and they feel this is what's driving behavior that they don't like, but they never put that on Jews or Christians for that matter. There's a lot of crazy shit in all of those books, in my opinion. And you can see right here what it allows people to justify.
Yep. Yes, indeed, 100%. And so obviously, I mean, I breathed a very, very heavy sigh of relief when I found out that he was released and that he's on his way home. So obviously, a better ending than what could have been, thank God. But the horror continues. Like, they're not safe at home. Obviously, they've been terrorized, as the piece says, every day since they got back from Los Angeles. You know, there have been retaliatory attacks against them since they won the Oscar. And so I hope to God that they stay safe. Like, what can you even do? Can you hire security? Like, can you get security? Like, it's an occupation. What steps are you allowed to take to defend yourself from these people?
I mean, I understand your home is your home, and especially they probably feel like they want to fight for justice. Man, I got one foot out the door with this freaking country. Man.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I can't imagine choosing to go back there, but you know, God bless them, man. Fighting a good fight.
Well, this country is just rotting on its own, according to its own premises, in my opinion, largely because of the flaws within its own premises. That is an occupation. That is, you know, in their minds, their home that's being taken over by people who have no right to be there. So they are, I think, rightly, understandably, more defensive and more proud of their country than we should be of ours. Because, you know, their land is being taken over by an outside force, whereas we are just apparently...
but the Israeli guy, too. I mean, him, too. Like, why you even want to go back there?
The Israeli guy, it's a different question. I mean, this video that I just showed, what, did I get rid of it already? Yeah, I must have taken it out of the queue. That is watermarked by an Israeli group that is, you know, devoted to Palestinian rights, right? The same question could be posed to them. Like, you know, this Yuval Abraham, we appreciate him making the film. He seems like one of the very, very few Israelis with a heart and a soul and a conscience. And I'm sure the people who published that video have similar intentions. But yeah, you have to ask the same question of them. Like, at what point do you wash your hands of this? Right. All right. And by wash your hands of it, I mean just not be a part of it anymore. Still continue your activism. But what are you still doing there? Man, I mean, it must be hell to live there. I can't imagine being one of, like we said, the very few Israelis of conscience and just being surrounded by that kind of a society.
Well, what do you? Yeah, I mean, it would be like living inside of the X platform.
Having like your neighbors are Clown World and Ian Miles Tron.
It would be like Tron, only you get transported inside of X.
Cat Turd is the mailman. Yeah.
No, unless you're going to advocate, I don't know what he advocates, but unless you're advocating to dismantle Israel as an apartheid state and allow Palestinians the right to return, in which case you're going to have a very rough time living over there.
Right.
They're going to call you a capo.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Okay. What else we got here? Jeff, thanks for the 199 over on YouTube. Any plans to interview Gary Stevenson? Have you been messaging us about that? We've heard that name before. Not at the moment.
Is that the Economist guy that they keep mentioning?
Is that him? I'm not sure.
Is that the one?
JG should have stayed in the chat and leaked more. Yeah, that's what I think. Yep. Thanks, baby Ethernet. Influenceable spinfluencers sheepdogging MAGA. That's next, right? The Sodagate. That's right. Coco Be Wild. Thanks for the £1. Appreciate that. Big Papa Mau Mau. Thanks for the $20. Appreciate that. When fascists came to Lincoln Heights, Ohio, the people formed armed patrols and checkpoints. The more fascists push people, the more this will spread. A sign of the times. I have to look into that story. It was not on my radar. I will. Eric Rousseau, pardon me, Pete Hegseth should be deposited or deported over his Crusader gang tattoos to CCOT. There you go. Yes, China Shill. This is who's really running the country, people. Actual fucking vampires. This is the sausage being made. Indeed.
Yeah, I mean that occurred to me when you were doing the segment. Like, she kind of looks like a vampire too.
Yeah, she does.
Do only people who look like vampires get that job? We're gonna go
Yeah.
start calling. We'll call her Vampirella.
Vampirella. That's right. Support Pete Hegseth now to El Salvador Seacott. He has a Crusader gang tattoos. There you go. A Harford. If that would have been any military member, they would be put in jail. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Okay, we are going to keep on moving here. Sodagate is next.
All right. I call this one Snap Fatties. So RFK Jr. suggests banning candy and soda from the $113 billion government program for low-income families. We shouldn't be subsidizing people to eat poison. Now, funny enough, there are certain things, me and Keaton, we agree on most things. We disagree on some things. One of the earliest things I remember us really being on the other side of was this. I actually agree with that. And as I recall, you did not. I did feel like, hey, man, it's not good for people. Like, why subsidize that? Now, your argument, which I could see, is why penalize the poor. But I feel like they're eating poison. I wish you could just ban this from supermarkets. I wish it just didn't exist at all. So to me, not subsidizing that for the poor, I don't have a problem with that. I can understand the other side. I did grow up on food stamps. And yeah, I mean, I liked my soda when I was a little kid. Fortunately, I outgrew that habit before I got to an age where it's going to have real health impacts if you continue to eat that shit. But I'm not opposed to it in principle. But what's interesting to me about this is I have long said that the whole healthy at any size, diet culture is racist. I always felt that was as engineered as a lot of the other social justice movements, that it was not organic, that it was planted. And when you're dealing with the liberal class and the liberals are controlling the institutions, you're going to pitch that in a certain way. Now, this is an excellent article if you want to get some background. This is from the author of a book on how Coke and the sugar industry use the same techniques as the tobacco industry to mislead the public about the dangers of their product. In fact, I did not know this. The sugar lobby predates the tobacco lobby. A lot of the people who kind of pioneered misleading the public about the dangers of tobacco actually cut their teeth doing it for sugar originally. And then they moved over into tobacco. One of the dietary falsehoods that Coca-Cola spreads is the concept that a calorie is a calorie. We don't believe in empty calories, Katie Bain, Coke's former chief marketing officer, said in 2012. The following year, James Quincy, now the CEO of the corporation, said, quote, "When we talk about obesity, a calorie is a calorie. The experts are clear. The academics, the government advisors, diabetes associations, we need to have balance in the calories. And if you're taking in too many or burning them off, that is a problem. Wherever they're coming from, a calorie is a calorie." Now, that is completely untrue. The way that your body processes a liquid sugar is very different from the way your body processes fruit, or your body processes vegetables, your body processes meat. That is not true, that a calorie is a calorie and where it comes from doesn't matter. But hey, if you're trying to get this completely anti-science message out there under a veneer of justification based on racism and social justice, you're going to subsidize certain types of people who will parrot that message. So we covered this at the time. The LA school district tweeted this out to much outrage from some parents. And if you pay attention, you'll notice they're basically parroting what the Coca-Cola company was putting out at that time.
Culture, fat phobia, and systems of oppression have created false hierarchies of food, and it shows up everywhere.
For instance, harmful thought patterns like earning food through exercising, or that dessert is the reward for the punishment of eating vegetables.
Remember that you do not need to earn food.
We are all incorrectly taught from a young age that our size, and therefore the foods that we eat, are markers of our self-worth. Moralizing food can lead to harmful relationships with food and disordered eating.
Instead of focusing on good and bad choices, try to approach food with neutrality in mind.
The only foods that are bad for you are foods that contain allergens, poisons, and contaminants, or food that is spoiled or is otherwise inedible.
Eat without guilt, regardless of what society says.
Okay, so now this whole social justice patina that they put over trying to eat healthy, trying not to be obese because it's bad for your health, the whole no, you can be healthy no matter what you eat. Well, now you see where that came from. Now you see where that came from. That is exactly the message that Coca-Cola was trying to impart. So they got people who could signal in a certain way to liberals that it's a social justice issue, right down to the fact that the nutritionist in that video works for Mondelez Foods, the owners of Oreos and Chips Ahoy. You know, so that was never disclosed there. This is healthy. No, it fucking isn't. No, it isn't. This came straight from Coca-Cola and other food manufacturers with an interest in keeping people unhealthy and eating their unhealthy products. No, it's not unhealthy. It's fine. You know what? Anyone who tells you otherwise is a racist trying to oppress you. Now, that's not going to work on MAGA. This is a problem. The culture is shifted. They can't really take the woke angle anymore. There's a new sheriff in town. RFK is, if there's two things he hates, it's sugar and vaccines. So these guys are in trouble. What are they going to do? Well, you got to turn it into a government overreach freedom issue. This is not going to work on MAGA. That's not going to work. So you got to go that way. So Nick Sorda was kind of a MAGA influencer. He uncovered that some of his fellow influencers were paid off to spin exactly that message, that to what RFK is trying to do is government overreach. Exposed, influenceable, the company cutting big checks to influencers on behalf of Big Soda. Over the past 48 hours, several large, supposedly MAGA-aligned influencers posted almost identical talking points fed to them, convincing you Maha was out of line for not wanting soda purchases with food stamps. Some even slimily invoked President Trump as an emotional manipulation tactic, referring to his Diet Coke button. Not a single one of them disclosed they were paid for these posts, which led readers to believe a general soda ban was in the works. So he outs his fellow influencers here. Here's Clown World. It's kind of a big account. The government wants to block soda purchases for Americans on Snap. Remember when NIC tried this and it completely backfired? President Trump proudly had a Diet Coke button in the Oval Office. This is ridiculous government overreach. Let people decide for themselves. So you see, like, you cannot argue healthy at any size with MAGA, so they're pitching it to that audience now. It's government overreach, damn it. I'll have a 50-ounce soda if I want one. Ian Miles Chong. A new war on soda has begun, targeting purchases made through Snap. I don't believe it's the government's role to decide what people should or shouldn't eat. These people are usually very against programs like Snap, too. That's pretty funny. Like, they got paid to argue that poor people should be able to use food stamps to buy soda. Wow. The last time the U.S. government dove deep into dietary guidance, the whole world ended up with the questionable food pyramid. It also championed, of course, here it comes, the COVID-19 vaccine as safe and effective, pushing all those buttons. Promoting better health for Americans is a reasonable idea, but not when it involves curbing Diet Coke purchases. Restricting soda through Snap is an unnecessary move by the government to control consumption overstepping its authority and infringing on individual liberty. Wow, what a bunch of gobbledygook. Wow. They are they they are fighting for food stamp recipients' right to buy soda. I can't imagine anything more un-MAGA than that, but they found their way there. So Sorter continues. These influencers were given a couple templates to use by Influenceable, with one of those templates specifically telling them to mention Trump's Diet Coke habit. This was done to invoke an emotional response from loyal Trump supporters, making them feel as if banning soda from Snap would be anti-Trump. This is an incredibly dirty tactic meant to manipulate loyal followers. Yeah, we get it, Nick. We know your audience is a little slow, but influencers were texted by Influenceable telling them to help push back against government overreach and told they'd be paid between several hundred and even 1,000 plus for each post, attempting to turn MAGA folks against RFK Jr. and Maha. Okay, I gotta say, because it's a bit of a mystery what these ex-influencers make. TikTok has its rates, YouTube has its rates clearly posted. Instagram, from what I know, you can't make any money except by having an individual contract with advertisers. But I guess these ex people don't get paid much because they sacrificed their entire brand on the prospect of making $1,000. So I guess Elon's kind of stingy with these folks that they're willing to do this for that kind of money. So he goes on. The way Influenceable operates is simple. They develop comfy relationships with lobbying firms who are funded handsomely by massive corporations such as Coca-Cola and PepsiCo. They also develop relationships with influencers such as the ones listed above and pay them to push these lobbying groups' talking points. They're a middleman that makes a hell of a lot, essentially selling out our country. So it's fascinating. It's exactly like what I showed you at the top, only pitched to a different audience, where you've got these firms that buy out people who have credibility with their target audience and get them to just parrot these talking points without disclosing who they really work for, who they're getting paid by. Sorter again. Every influencer contacted by Influenceable met the same criteria, supposedly MAGA aligned. This was all meant to manipulate their followers, which trust them for news and opinions, into siding with Big Soda. A grand total of 0 of them disclosed that they were paid to push a stance on proposed regulations. Now, Riley Gaines, the former swimmer turned MAGA influencer, apparently she got offered the money and turned it down. They offered to pay me to post. A big fat heck no. Sorter thanks her. And so did RFK. Thank you for your integrity, Riley. It's troubling that some companies now think they have a right to demand taxpayer money to poison our children. Clown World, I didn't do it. I made a post and deleted it within the first hour. I withdrew from the campaign entirely and removed my post. I haven't received a single penny from Big Soda or anyone else for this. Why'd you make the post? So I figure he must have gotten a heads up that this was coming out, that he was busted. Because why would you make it? Well, I mean, maybe he made it and then he was afraid he'd get busted.
What do you mean withdrew from the campaign? What campaign? I mean, so yeah, you were a part of it.
I mean, Riley picked up on it. So apparently it wasn't, I just thought I was passing on a message. She understood what it was. So why didn't you? Maybe if you're saying you didn't get what it was, maybe you're too stupid to be doing this. Maybe you shouldn't be trying to tell other people what to think about news events then, if you're that dumb.
Maybe apparently, your handle isn't so ironic after all.
Maybe you're a clown. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe you are a clown. Riley understood it. She has no special qualification. She's a swimmer. Eric Doherty. Yeah, that was dumb of me. Massive egg on my face. In all seriousness, it won't happen again. I mean, what else are you going to do, right? Like, I mean, that's about the best you could do with that. It's better than Clown World. was
Yeah,
like,
exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
I made it, but I took it down.
I
I
took
didn't
it
make
down.
any money. I
Yeah.
swear. Like this, I mean, yeah, like that's about as the most you can say to try to get out of that. And that's, it's up to their followers whether they want to trust them after that. Now, Nick Sorter, I guess, not wanting to burn his bridges with his fellow influencers, tries to give them kudos. The ones who deleted them before the 24-hour mark technically forfeited their payments. So props to Eric Doherty and Clown World for doing so. And I agree with this poster. Sterling Cooley. Nope, not props. They're simply shill accounts and deserve zero praise. Block both of them. They have zero judgment, and this hasn't changed because they saw where the wind was blowing and deleted the posts. Hear, hear. Data Republican. Thank you, sir. I believe these accounts include good people, and I don't think they should be condemned for what they did, particularly if this is their living. Let's give them grace, but also make sure they never be put in this position again. Now, that has 174,000 views, and wow, that is an incredible formulation. So you're saying no one is responsible for what they do as long as they're doing it in the interest of making a living, but we have
Right,
to make sure that they're not offered that money, but if they are and they take it, they're not responsible. Wow. Okay. None of these influencers disclosed that they were being paid to do this. This is Matt Von Swole. That is against FTC rules on advertising for social media. I support people being paid for content, but this was done pretty insidiously. I can't trust anything they say now. I hate that, really sad. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what simps, after finding this out, would still follow those accounts, but I think he's absolutely right. Obviously, this is not my ideological lane, but if someone in my lane did that, I certainly wouldn't take them seriously going forward. I guess
No, when
that's
you
up
do
to
an
them.
ad read, you have to disclose that it's sponsorship. You have to mark the video
Right.
up. Yeah, obviously.
Right.
Obviously.
They didn't say
You
anything
can't
about
express
it.
an opinion and not disclose that you're getting paid to say it,
Sure.
of course.
And I'll say, being in this space, not only obviously are our ads disclosed, a lot of the stuff that pays best is stuff that we won't do. I'm not going to say what it is.
Exactly.
There are certain things that pay multiples more than the stuff that we're ethically willing to do ad reads for, that we just won't do because we're not going to do it. We
Right.
wouldn't respect ourselves if we did. So that tells you something about who these people are. Now, Lee
I mean, I don't
Fong-
respect myself anyway, but the audience wouldn't respect us if we did it.
Well, that's right. But that's what these guys didn't think through, apparently. There goes their grift. Sugary soda industry's covert influencer campaign falls apart, from our friend Lee Fong. Just a little background on this, which again, it's very interesting because before they felt the cultural influencers were libs. So all of their attempts to do things like this in the past are in that direction. This incident highlights a long-standing pattern in the beverage industry's approach to policy debates over sugary drinks. For more than 2 decades, soda companies have quietly funded scientists, advocacy groups, journalists, and community organizations to counter proposals limiting sugary beverage consumption. When San Francisco proposed a tax on sweetened beverages in 2012, ABC News reported that the industry paid protesters up to $13 per hour to attend anti-tax rallies. These demonstrations were designed to appear grassroots, with participants claiming the tax would disproportionately harm minority communities. Similar tactics emerged in New York when then Mayor Michael Bloomberg proposed size restrictions on sugary drinks. The NAACP and Hispanic Federation opposed the regulation without disclosing financial connections to Coca-Cola. In their court filing against the Bloomberg rule, the NAACP argued the regulation, quote, arbitrarily discriminates against citizens and small business owners in African American and Hispanic communities. Now, I remember that, and I wasn't quite as politically involved and aware as I am now, but I remember that sounded really weird to me. Like, why would people from these communities that suffer from very high rates of diabetes and hypertension, why would people who claim to represent those communities be advocating that for them to have more of the stuff that's killing those communities? And this is why, because they got paid. So that to me is what's most fascinating in this story. Like, what you're witnessing here is the industry trying to pivot to MAGA having control over the conversation. How do you pitch sugary drinks to them? You can't do the healthy at any size thing. They're not going to go for that. You can't pitch it as an issue of oppression. They're not going to go for that. You have to pitch it as an issue of freedom. And here, who knows who else they're paying? I'm sure these are not these relatively obscure influencers are not the only ones getting paid to pitch this line. But blew up in their faces. I think after this story, they're going to have a hard time taking this tack without anyone noticing.
Yeah, I mean, Steven Crowder says, he was one of the people who, came out and gave what is, the right-wing line on this, which is, if I'm paying, it's my choice. If you want your, you want your soda, you have to pay for it. If I'm paying it, you can eat what I tell you to eat. It's not a liberties issue, right? So that's kind of like the right-wing line on it. And obviously, what's amazing about this is so many of these people who got paid to do this have got to be fucking rich anyway. I mean, it's a relatively small.
That's what I don't understand.
Amount of money.
That's
right?
not a lot of money to compromise yourself.
To like stain yourself in that way. It's insane. It's really short-sighted. As for the policy itself, I mean, I do generally think it's probably not worth policing their food choice in that way. Especially because, like Ocean Spray cranberry juice has the same sugar content as a glass of Coca-Cola. Now, they used to use high fructose corn syrup. Ocean Spray specifically got rid of it. But there's still a lot of juice brands that it's juice and it has some vitamin C in there, so there's a little bit of nutritional value. But it's still pretty much just as bad for you as a soda because of all the sugar and shit. So it seems kind of arbitrary to draw the line at soda. What, are you going to have a special section of the store that people are allowed to shop in? I don't know. I mean, there's certainly an argument for it.
That is an interesting point in that some things we don't think of as unhealthy or unhealthy. I mean, this would have to extend.
Like Hawaiian sweet rolls does fucking shit for you too. I mean, sugar in that
there
shit,
are a lot of foods that are
shit.
very bad for you. It's doable though, because if you go into the store, even now, there are certain things you cannot buy with food stamps. There are certain types of things you can't buy. It could be done at the store level. But yes, you make a point of like, well, what does it extend to? Especially in America, because everything is shit.
Everything is shit, right? So is it worth doing? Like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Like, are you going to bust their balls over Sprites, but not over like fruit punch? Where does that fall in it? If it's got a little apple juice in it, does that mean it's not poison, even if the sugar content is the same? I mean, sugary drinks are horrible for you, and I'm a soda jerk. I love the taste of soda. I miss soda. I hardly drink it at all anymore. But it's terrible for you. And so man, like as a public, and it's the thing is, it's cheap enough to the point where you could say as a policy, hey, if you want a bottle of soda, you got to spring, $3 for it. Like, it's not, is it oppression to deny people that? No, but I don't love it. And combined with the fact that there's half the shit in the supermarket is terrible for you. So, like, is it really a public health thing? Is it really going to improve health outcomes? I don't know.
That's the best point I've heard on it. Like, how far are you going to take it when so much of the American diet is awful? But I still tend to err on the side of it. Look, this is my hope. It'll come back to bite them, because you got all these conservatives saying, yeah, let's stop the poor from drinking all these unhealthy drinks. And maybe they grow stronger and they come back and they take you out. Right? It's possible. Take you out to the movies.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, it is certainly an argument. It is certainly an argument. Like, I don't think it's completely out of bounds. I just don't know if it's worth doing. But these guys, I mean, what clownish bullshit. I mean, what ridiculous bullshit. Over what? What was the pay? It was nothing compared to what these guys must have.
Top rate was $1,000.
$1,000?
I think that it was only $1 per 1,000 views.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, if your post goes viral, you get 1 million views, it's $1,000, right? And they probably cap it at that.
Yeah.
Right. So if it goes super viral, which it's not going to, because it's at the end of the day, it's a post about soda. It's not going to get. Yeah. It's not going to catch fire like that. Yeah. Just crazy that you would compromise yourself for that kind of payoff. Insane. All right. DP, thanks for the $2. DP, thanks for the $5. He wasn't talking about his wife. Watch Katie Halper's video uploaded this morning. Looked to me like he was. If I'm mistaken about that, must have been talking about him. He must have been threatening to rape him. Which maybe he was. Maybe if he says, we'll go to jail together, that could have been a threat against him. Maybe I was mistaken. Didn't look like that to me, but if I'm wrong, the only person besides his wife who could have been threatening was himself, which is really not much better. But yeah, it is possible that I misunderstood that. Why do you think they were arguing in English? Well, that's probably the common language between them, right? I mean, I don't know if the Palestinians speak Hebrew or if the Israelis speak Arabic, so they probably all know some English. Would be my guess. Virtuoso, thanks for the $5. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I was too added to the Van Tegseth group chat, and I was weirdly asked to send pictures of my living room couch. Yes, good one. Thank you, Virtuoso. Yes, send nudes of the couch cushion. Indeed. Hillary Hinton, one of my email addresses is Goldberg Death to Goys, and I found myself mistakenly included in the protocol's Zion Slack list. I'm going to fight them from the inside, though. Don't give away my real identity. Won't do that, Hillary Hinton. Nocturnal Human, Hardlands earlier today reported that he was released. Yep, he has been released, indeed. Okay. Let's see. Judy Denmark, thanks for the $10. Wait until you see the congressional hearings earlier today. Sure, you will use clips of Gabbard and Ratcliffe humiliating themselves. Yeah, we'll probably do that either Thursday or we will maybe do that tomorrow. That's right. So, folks, we are live tomorrow.
We have a patron show.
We are live tomorrow night exclusively for our Patreon members, our paid Substack members, and our paid locals members. So if you would like to join the Cool Kids Club and join us for a patron exclusive live stream, you could do so by becoming a member at patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals at DoDissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble, 895 of you are right now, you can hit that bright red join button underneath the video player and join our locals for just $5 a month. You get all kinds of perks. You get your name up on the supporter scroll. You also get call-in access to our post-show Q&As every Sunday. And you get 2 bonus live streams per month, a film club live stream as well as a content and call-in live stream. So tomorrow we're doing content and calls starting at, 7 p.m. I think we're doing it? Yeah, 7 o'clock tomorrow. You will get an email notification with a link both to view the stream and to call into it should you so choose. You will get an email tomorrow, either late morning or early afternoon, and then we'll see you all there. For just $5 a month, those are all the perks you get. You also get, and this has been a very popular feature, ad-free replays of every live stream that we do the day after we do it. So we had Caleb Maupin on the show on Sunday. We split the stream, which means the full live stream was only replayable on Rumble. There are quite a few ads on the Rumble stream replays, and so for just $5 a month, you get what is basically a raw video file sent to you that we upload to a personal use Rumble channel, and from there, you can watch the full replay ad-free the next day. So if you miss a stream and you want to catch it ad-free, that is a perk that people are saying great things about. People love that perk. People are really loving that perk. So DoDissidents.locals.
They've never seen anything like it.
Never seen anything like it. DoDissidents.locals.com is where you go to sign up for just $5 a month. You can also join our Patreon or our Substack. Perks are the same across all of those platforms. You guys are the backbone of the show, and we could not do it without you. So thank you, everybody, very much for your support. Okay, let's go to Michael Castillo over on YouTube. Nico House said in his hotspot video that Israel has more fans of the playground than any other country per capita in the entire world. Free Palestine. Thank you, Michael Castillo.
Well, yeah, because they have a policy of taking any Jew.
Right, exactly. So, yeah.
They run there.
Exactly. It's like yeah. It's like a base, if you will. Okay, let's keep going. All right, Tesla's next.
We told you from the moment that Donald Trump claimed that boycotting was illegal, that they were going to conflate boycotting and protest with terrorism and violence. So just to remind you, people keep saying, we keep talking about boycotts, and they keep saying, you can't light a Tesla on fire. Nobody's arguing that, but they want you to make that connection. So Trump, from very early on, when the obvious happened and people started boycotting Tesla, which you could have seen coming a mile away, Trump says the radical left lunatics, as they often do, are trying to illegally and collusively boycott Tesla, one of the world's great automakers and Elon's baby, in order to attack and do harm to Elon. Well, they're really starting to pull out all the stops to protect their baby Elon. Now, you might know this site. They're kind of the main coordinators of legal, lawful, nonviolent protests. TeslaTakedown.com says right there, a peaceful protest movement. This Saturday, they are coordinating or involving themselves in a massive protest against Tesla. That is this Saturday, March 29th. And I can announce now, we are going to cover it live from the Manhattan protest here in New York, which will be down near the High Line in Chelsea. 277 Tesla locations in the U.S., 500 plus around the world. That is this Saturday. So you can very easily, if you're wondering if there's an action near you, they have a little map there. You can put in the zip code, and they'll give you a very convenient list of where you can go near you to be involved in that protest. Here's some of their text. On March 29th, 2025, we are calling for a global day of action to stop Musk. Join us. Elon Musk is destroying our democracy, and he's using the fortune he built at Tesla to do it. We are taking action at Tesla to stop Musk's illegal coup. Sell your Teslas, dump your stock, join the picket lines. All legal. Everything there is perfectly legal, and I would argue very American. We're tanking Tesla's stock price to stop Musk. Last I heard, a lot of people involved in MAGA, and certainly the conservative movement as a whole, were salivating every time Target's stock price dropped.
Right.
So all this talk about rooting against an American company, Disney, they love seeing Disney stock price tank, right? Stopping Musk will help save lives and protect our democracy. The stakes couldn't be higher. No one is coming to save us. Not politicians, not the media, not the courts. Tesla Takedown is a peaceful protest movement. We oppose violence, vandalism, and destruction of property. This protest is a lawful exercise of our First Amendment right to peaceful assembly. Right there in black and white. And there has been no accusation that Tesla Takedown has been responsible for any action. That's why you don't see the people behind the website being locked up by Patel and the rest of his crew. Believe me, they would if they could, and I wouldn't put it past them as time goes on. So John Cusack, who took part in a video teleconference that they did a few years ago promoting this, he put this out on Instagram, and you have some rather confused politics here in the response. Is Vlad paying you, or are you rolling pro bono? Now, I don't get it. Is this like a MAGA Russiagator? Is this someone who didn't get the memo that Trump wants to cool things off with Vlad? This person doesn't seem to have a very clear political perspective. And here, it's funny, the term snowflake gets thrown around a lot at the libs, but anyone who has dealt with some of the MAGA crowd, they are at least as bad, if not worse. Reported as violence. Reported as violence. Peaceful protest. Peaceful protest. Turn out to protest. I thought we're all for the First Amendment and stuff.
Right.
Elon, please make sure President Trump knows about Tesla Takedown Day on March 25th. The National Guard needs to be at all Tesla locations because on Blue Sky, they're threatening Molotov cocktails and shootings, and it's going to be in hundreds of locations. Stay safe. Now, if there's one bright spot, it's in the intellectual quality of these people, because actually it's on the 29th. It's not on March 25th. Now, with that level of accuracy, she is a shoo-in to a job at Pete Hegseth's Pentagon for sure. Yeah. She should apply. And in terms of the claims that Ms. Dickinson is making, I'd like to see the screenshots of that, because certainly if Blue Sky were awash in people threatening Molotov cocktails and shootings, I think we'd be seeing them all over X, and I haven't seen anything like that. Now, don't tell me there's one schmuck in Sheboygan who tweeted out something like that, sure, but is this something that people are doing en masse with Bondi just dying to prosecute somebody? I don't think so.
I mean, obviously not. I mean, it's just the most absurd thing, but this is what creates that chilling effect. This is what creates the chilling effect.
Exactly. All right, so Laura Loomer here sends out Jasmine Crockett appeared on this video conference, and she claims that this is she should be censured for domestic terrorism. So I'm going to show you the clip that she put out and that many others circulated, and then I'm going to show you the rest of what she says that's not in the clip.
I keep it short, but I am truly here for very selfish reasons. Starting with on March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes. Listen, I have learned as I serve on the Doge Oversight Committee that there is only one language that the people that are in charge understand right now. And that language is money. And so I've been so proud to see us organized behind a cause.
Okay, so you have to really distort what she said, even there, to interpret that as a call for violence. But, of course, that's never stopped them before. So, Elon, wow. She broke the law. Relevant section here, advocating for violence against people. That is what they're calling advocating for violence. So let's pick it up from how that clip would continue if they didn't cut it where they did, which even that really does not back up what they're claiming. But let's hear the rest.
And so I've been so proud to see us organized behind a cause, because here's the deal. The things that we're fighting for, we are fighting for our country. We're fighting for democracy. We're fighting for our freedoms. And when I say fighting, I'm saying that figuratively. Obviously, everything that I am promoting is nonviolent. And so definitely don't want anyone to take that word literal in any way. But I think that
that's weird that they didn't include the rest of what she was saying. It's just another 20 seconds. Why did they cut it there? Here's another clip of her talking about this on MSNBC.
So, yeah, I'm excited to see that Elon Musk, that his money as it relates to Tesla, well, Tesla's tanking right now. And I'm okay with that. So just in case the slow people listening decide to clip this up later, I just want to say that I have never promoted violence whatsoever. Yet I've also never made excuse for those violent actors, such as the ones on January 6th.
Oh no, she went there. Well, Pam Bondi is not going to take "I'm against violence" for an answer. No, she won't.
This Congresswoman Crockett, who is calling for attacks on Elon Musk on her birthday. Let's take him out on my birthday, she says. And yet she turns and says, oh, I'm not calling for violence. Well, she is an elected public official. And so she needs to tread very carefully because nothing will happen to Elon Musk. And we're going to fight to protect all of the Tesla owners throughout this country, and it's this basic safety. Once again, domestic terrorism is going to come to a stop in our country.
Okay, so you could see pretty clearly what they're doing here. If you hear what Crockett said, it's all about peaceful protest. She emphatically talks about being against violence and not supporting any kind of violent action. But to listen to Bondi, you wouldn't know any of that. You would think she wants to equate calling for protest, calling for boycotts with calling for violence, even though you can clearly see that's not at all what she said. And Patel, predictably, jumping on board the bandwagon. The FBI has been investigating the increase in violent activity toward Tesla, and over the last few days, we have taken additional steps to crack down and coordinate our response. This is domestic terrorism. Those responsible will be pursued, caught, and brought to justice. Now, some of the responses were maybe not what he was going for. Weren't you going to shut down the FBI? Can you all focus on protecting all Americans, not just Elon's car dealerships? These are state-level issues. Where's the Epstein list? Where indeed? I wouldn't hold my breath, my friend. We knew.
I think we were too hard on that guy, don't you think?
Too hard on him.
Yeah.
We knew as soon as Trump said that this is where they were going to go, and I would bet hard currency, maybe not American. The dollar's looking a little shaky. On the 29th, when there are these massive protests around the country, they're going to try to arrest peaceful protesters under the premise that they're terrorists. I will be very surprised if they do not try to test how far they can push that this weekend.
Yeah, which is part of the reason why we want to cover it because, and I'm sure we won't be the only people there, but, it's important to have cameras on so that if somebody gets dragged out of there and gets accused of doing something they didn't do, that there's some evidence of them not doing anything. Maybe that'll stop them from being sent to CCOT in El Salvador. Maybe it won't. But the more evidence that you have, obviously, the stronger a case can be made to whoever may be willing to hear it. I mean, these people are just thugs. They are just gangsters. This is just gangsterism. Pam Bondi, she should tread lightly. She's a congresswoman.
Right.
She has the right to advocate for any policy she wants, who went out of her way to clarify unnecessarily, in my view. I mean, we're going to fight for this is common political speak. Fight doesn't necessarily mean physically fight, but she knows what absolute reprehensible scum run the government right now. And so she felt the need to clarify, even after making such a benign statement, I'm not calling for violence. They say she has to tread lightly anyway because they want people to be afraid to speak against them.
Yes.
They want people, they are being intentionally thuggish. They're saying you ought to tread lightly because even if you don't do anything, we are the kind of people who are going to suggest that you did something, whether you did or didn't. And look at the liberties we've already taken in terms of deporting legal asylum seekers to torture prisons in El Salvador, right? That could happen to you if we decide we want it to. That's the message that they're sending. It's pretty unmistakable.
Right. And in the end, they're bound to lose because you can't make people buy a Tesla. You can suppress the protests all you want. He has destroyed his customer base, and his new MAGA friends are not in the market for a Tesla.
Yeah.
The working class base that they stole from the Democrats, and that the Democrats, through their own actions, certainly did everything they could to push away. I'm not letting them off the hook. But hey, man, they can't afford a Tesla. Those people are not. They don't want a Tesla. They're into. There's a cultural mismatch between this electric car company and MAGA. You've been running around talking about how the electric cars are unnecessary and climate change is a hoax and the gas-powered cars are better. Your base is not going to all of a sudden become the new customer base for a Tesla. So Tesla is cooked. And all of this is really flailing as if they suppress these protests. It's going to save Elon's car company. And remember, the reason to do this, the reason that I certainly support these efforts within their peaceful First Amendment, peaceful protest stated intentions. The reason I support it is because it's with the Tesla stock that he funds everything else. That's the cash cow. That's the golden goose. This is why they're so desperate to stop this. Because if you metaphorically take down Tesla, you take down the stock through peaceful protest and through consumer boycott, Elon loses a lot of that power. And when you look at the way he's been exercising that power, yes, the Tesla takedown site is right. No one's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. And that is one legal, peaceful way that we can take action.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, I think it's look, I think protesting Tesla is a great thing. I think you should be ashamed to drive around in a Tesla now. You should feel shame for driving around in one of those cars now. You should not feel fear. You should not be made to feel afraid or threatened or anything. That's over the line, obviously. But yeah, no, you should feel bad about yourself pulling out of the driveway in a Tesla car now. What do these people think they could do? So you think you can roll out the red carpet? Forget roll out the red carpet. That's even a bad metaphor. In fact, there's no metaphor necessary. You literally allow the richest man in the world to buy the government, and then you get fucking indignant about people organizing against his product line. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
Are you kidding me?
These are the same people who boycott Disney,
of course,
and Tesla, and
of course,
Disney and Target and Bud Light. Same people.
Yep. Yep.
NFL,
and the people who
same people.
The people who carry water for them, the peanut gallery. I mean, just the most pathetic people on earth. Yes. The lowest of the low. Worse than the libs. Worse. Way worse. Yep. Suggesting that it's un-American or traitorous.
That sounds like treason. That sounds like treason to me.
No, the absolute worst of the worst. Just really, really, really pathetic. All right. Let's move on here. Michael Castillo, Hawaiian Punch was my favorite, but all we could afford at Price Club was Nestea powder mix and Tang. Yeah, we used to get the powder too. Atomic, the iced tea, not the punch. Atomic Toaster, yo, thanks for the $4.99. Just saw Fox News reporting Khalil is being sued for having prior knowledge of October 7th. Oh, great. God. All right, well, that'll be a story for Thursday. Landrew, thanks for the $100. Let's have Landrew's sound drop. What did you take away my you took away my proud to be an American, stand up and be an American? I tried playing that sound drop. Where'd you put those? Did you delete those?
Did I take that one out?
I think you deleted those.
I think really?
Those. Yeah, I couldn't find it.
That might be an accident because you do use that. I was just taking out things we don't use.
All right. Well, I can put them back on.
Whoops. That was an accident, I think.
That's all right. Where's Landrew's sound drop? You got that one? You can't delete Landrew's.
I am Landrew. Landrew is dead.
Very kind of you, Landrew. Thank you very much, as always, for your generosity. He says, this is the Reichstag moment. Free Palestine. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, look, it's just, these people are just criminals. They're just criminals. Kash Patel, please. The guy is a fucking gangster thug bastard. Like, I don't know what to say. The guy
I
wasn't expecting
Congress,
to. Yeah,
he went before Congress and claimed not to know a podcaster whose show he went on 8 times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just a fucking lunatic. Judy Denmark, thanks for the $10. Wait until you see the congressional hearings earlier today. Surely you'll use clips. Oh, sorry, we got that one already. Yep, we'll probably show that one tomorrow. John M. in Minnesota, Yuval Abraham has also done great journalism at +972 Mag. Yeah, example, his reporting on the IDF using AI targeting via Lavender. Yep, we covered that, actually. We covered that at the time. And yes, I am aware of his involvement with that outlet. Vito P. Win Oscar can't get distribution in the USA. Isn't that MAGA? Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Indeed. Indeed. Bad food is bad for you. KW. Yep, there we go. Yes, bad food is bad for you. That's my quote. Indeed. All right. According to Homeland Security grievances, says Nina, about government overreach can be considered an act of homegrown terrorism, so this could be inciting violence. Pardon me, slippery slope. Rubber toe. Heard this whole war on soda boring thing like yesterday on Due Dissidents down to the exact mention of Riley Gaines. WTF. I heard this whole war on soda boring thing like yesterday. Oh, well, we weren't on yesterday. What do you mean? On Due Dissidents? Yeah, not sure what you meant there. We were having a Groundhog Day. Sugar is not bad for you. The problem is so many have become metabolically damaged due to seed oils and chemicals in the food, which comprises the cell's ability to metabolize sugar.
What do you work for PepsiCo?
What do you work for? Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, one of the reasons
Don't try
why
it
they,
on us.
Well, one of the reasons why they say the what is it? Mexican Coke uses cane sugar, right? They don't use the corn syrup. The corn syrup is tougher on your body than the cane sugar. So there are degrees of that. Yeah, but sugar in excess to that extent is not good for you, even just cane sugar. And there's an insane amount of sugar in these drinks, not just soda is what I mean. Like even a cranberry juice cocktail has as much sugar content as a can of soda.
Yeah, for me, fortunately, I just outgrew the taste for it. Like I had that shit when I was a little kid. All little kids like that stuff. As I became a teen, like I just didn't want it anymore. Like I never made an effort. I just didn't want it.
I still like it. It's fun stuff. All right. We got time for two more, I think. These are short ones. All right, folks. This is I know it's been a heavy show today, so we're going to do a couple of lighter ones to end things out here. Trump demands Colorado take down purposefully distorted painting of him. Now this is a painting that's been up or I should say had been up because they did cave and take it down.
They took it down
since 2019. Yeah. But this is at, I guess, the Colorado State House. The president is laser focused on big issues. Now, here's the portrait in question, which is a bad portrait in the sense that it really doesn't capture the essence of Trump's mania. Like he kind of looks like the founder of a fast food restaurant here, like whose poster they'd have up at one of the chain locations,
Well, he looks like a gallery of past CEOs at an insurance company.
Exactly. He looks like a normie here, right? It doesn't capture the essence of who he is, which is not a normie, to put it mildly. But if you want to be remembered as a statesman, I would say it's bad in a flattering direction, right? It makes you look too normal, would be my critique of this painting.
You almost look qualified.
Right. You almost look like you belong in a White House. Yes. Yeah. Which, again, not great from an artistic standpoint. But if you're Trump, you may think, hey, I look like I belong in that photo.
Guy was probably a fan.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody likes a bad picture or painting of themselves, but the one in Colorado in the state capitol put up by the governor, along with all other presidents, was purposefully distorted to a level that even I, perhaps, have never seen before. The artist, I like how you just put perhaps. I, perhaps, have never seen before. The artist also did President Obama, and he looks wonderful. But the one on me is truly the worst. She must have lost her talent as she got older. In any event, which is weird because this is an old picture because you served a term 4 years ago. So she did one of Biden since. I mean, apparently, maybe a different artist did Biden, but apparently if she also did Obama, she would have done Trump and then Biden as well. what was it? Okay, she must have lost her talent as she got older. In any event, I would much prefer not having a picture than having this one, but many people from Colorado have called and written to complain. In fact, they are actually angry about it. I am speaking on their behalf to the radical left governor, Jared Polis, who is extremely weak on crime, in particular with respect to Tren de Aragua, which practically took over Aurora. Don't worry, we saved it, in parentheses. Oh, it's good to know. To take it down, Jared should be ashamed of himself. And they caved. Trump's portrait to be taken down at Colorado Capitol after president claimed it was distorted. So there's another image of it there, which you could see a little clearer. A painting of Donald Trump hanging with other presidential portraits at the Colorado State Capitol will be taken down after Trump claimed that his was, quote, purposefully distorted, according to a letter obtained by the Associated Press. House Democrats said in a statement that the oil painting would be taken down at the request of Republican leaders in the legislature. Colorado Republicans raised more than $10,000 through a GoFundMe account to commission the oil painting, which was unveiled in 2019. Senate Minority Leader Paul Lundeen, a Republican, said that he requested for Trump's portrait to be taken down and replaced by one that depicts his contemporary likeness. If the GOP wants to spend time and money on which portrait of Trump hangs in the Capitol, then that's up to them, the Democrats said. Initially, Trump objected to artist Sarah Boardman's people. Who did I say?
Trump.
Oh, Trump. Okay. Initially, people objected to artist Sarah Boardman's depiction of Trump as non-confrontational and thoughtful in the portrait, according to an interview with Colorado Times reporter from the time. Yeah, that's what I said. It makes it doesn't capture who he is. It makes him look much more civilized than he actually is.
Yeah.
But in a Sunday night post on his Truth Social platform, Trump said he would prefer no picture at all over the one that hangs in the Colorado Capitol. The Republican lauded a nearby portrait of President Barack Obama, also by Boardman, saying he looks wonderful. Yeah, the one of Obama, see, that captures Obama. That really captures who Barack Obama is, whereas the Trump one certainly does not. The portraits are not the purview of the Colorado governor's office, but the Colorado Building Advisory Committee. The ones up to and including President Jimmy Carter were donated as a collection. The others were donated by political parties or, more recently, paid for by outside fundraising. Trump's Sunday night comments had prompted a steady stream of visitors to pose for photos with the painting before the announcement that it will be taken down. Aaron Howe, visiting from Wyoming on Monday, stood in front of Trump's portrait, looking down at photos of the president on his phone, then back up at the portrait. Honestly, he looks a little chubby, said Howe of the portrait, but better than I could do. There you go. This is a simple man. Simple taste. I don't know anything about the artist, said Howe, who voted for Trump. It could be taken one way or the other. Kaylee Williamson, an 18-year-old Trump supporter from Arkansas, got a photo with the portrait. I think it looks like him. I guess he's smoother than all the other ones, she said. I think it's fine. Well, no, Kaylee, it was not fine. It was not fine, and now it has been removed. But yeah. I mean, look, I see the critique, but if I were Trump, I would be impressed. I would be pleasantly surprised by such a distorted capturing of my essence.
Yeah. This is my theory based on the fact that she's not just an incompetent artist because the Obama portrait captures Obama. I think she was probably in a position where she was trying to not seem partisan because she was afraid if she really captured Trump, the Republicans might be angry.
Right. Like she could have done a good rendering of him and just done like pink spray paint on a trash can
like
lid
glowering.
And frame that. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like she could have submitted that. I think you're right. I think she thought she was, what's the word? She thought that she was elevating him.
Exactly.
But no,
she
he didn't
was
take
trying
it
to
that
make
way.
him look dignified.
Exactly. He didn't take it that way. Didn't appreciate it, but he got his way. He's been getting his way a lot. Another win. Getting tired of winning.
Another win on the board.
That's right. They folded. Folded like an end table. All right. EO shush. Sugar is not. Oh, sorry. Got that one already. Jasmine should really be wearing her raccoon skin hat if she wants me to take her seriously. Oh, because of Crockett? Good one. Good one. Like Davy Crockett. Ah, good one. Stoop sign. Goldberg of the Atlantic quit school so he could become an IDF prison guard. The matzo balls on that Zionist asshole. Is that true? Did he quit school so he could become a Zionist prison guard? Wow. He doesn't look like the type to be a prison guard. No offense to him. Morty Duke.
I mean, how stupid do you have to be to include a former IDF prison guard in your signal chat about bombing Yemen?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Maybe Trump should have been more specific before jumping up in wrestling manner, shaking a fist and yelling, "Fight, fight, fight." Yeah, there you go. That's a good one too. Trump portrait gives us a key into how to really trigger Trump. Make him look anodyne, basic, and unremarkable. There you go. He enjoys both outrage and adulation, but cannot abide neutrality. That is a good take, Violent Fembot.
Yeah.
That's a better take than we had. If I had thought more about that segment, I would have maybe come up with that. Although maybe not. I think that is good. I'm impressed.
Well, we're looking for a fill-in host.
Yeah, we're looking for exactly. Yeah, that's a very thoughtful take on what ultimately was a very thoughtless, fluffy segment. John N., thanks for the $5. When Harold Washington was Chicago mayor, he sent cops into the Art Institute to remove a painting of him in women's lingerie. Love from Florida. That's a fun fact.
Interesting.
Thank you, John N. Appreciate that. All right, folks, we got one more segment on the day, and then we are out of here until tomorrow. So once again, patron show tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Oh, and then Thursday, we will be live at 4 p.m. Sorry, I know we had to reschedule last Thursday. We got to do this one too because something came up, but that won't happen again for a while. So Thursday, we'll have a 4 o'clock show, 4 o'clock afternoon show on Thursday.
All right. George Clooney drew the attention of our illustrious president, well, not for the first time. Donald Trump calls George Clooney a second-rate movie star after Clooney calls out the government for trying to make journalists smaller. This is what Trump had to say. Why would the now highly discredited 60 Minutes be doing a total puff piece on George Clooney, a second-rate movie star, all with the weird quotations on it, and failed political pundit? He fought hard for Sleepy Joe's election, and then right after the debate, dumped him like a dog. Later, I assume under orders from the Obama camp, pushed all out for Kamala, only to soon realize that was not going to work out too well. T-O, not T-O-O in his version. Yeah. 60 Minutes even fraudulently inserted fake answers into her disastrous interview aired just before Election Day in one of the most embarrassing and dishonest events in broadcast history. And now George Clooney again? His press agent should be making a fortune. All right. So Clooney is right now kind of doing a press tour to promote his upcoming Broadway version of his movie Good Night and Good Luck. I have often referenced this movie over the years on the show as a great example of how oblivious the liberals are to the fact that they've become McCarthyites. Because they all love this movie. They all love this movie. And the irony of the fact that they've become the mindless McCarthyites portrayed in this movie completely escapes them. That's why it's coming to Broadway. Who do you think goes to Broadway mostly? Jukebox musicals, that's tourists. But this kind of Broadway, that's lips. When I went to Curse of the Starving Class, I think I could have sat in any seat in the house and I would have had people, as I did, Trump, 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 right behind me. So that's who this is for. It's the same people they do To Kill a Mockingbird. They love that too, because it's mean to poor white people. So Clooney went on 60 Minutes, and we're just going to listen to a little bit of this.
states fail, when the judiciary and the executive and the legislative branches fail us, the fourth estate has to succeed. Has to succeed. As 60 Minutes is here right now on our first day.
Kidding aside, Clooney made the point, these are chilling times for the news media.
ABC has just settled a lawsuit with the Trump administration, and CBS News is in the process of...
Okay, so because of their very self-apologetic explanation for the lawsuit they're involved in, I'm going to pull Variety's explanation. ABC News agreed in December to pay $15 million and issue a statement of apology to settle Trump's defamation lawsuit against George Stephanopoulos and the network after the anchor inaccurately stated the president-elect was liable for rape. Trump is currently suing CBS and 60 Minutes for $10 billion, alleging the news program tried to mislead voters by airing two different edits of remarks made in an interview with Kamala Harris before the election. The president has called for 60 Minutes to be terminated. Now, yes, I think anybody who followed that story, now in their version, it's completely unjustified that he's suing for this. I think 10 billion is probably excessive. I don't even know if what they did falls under election interference. Maybe it does. I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the relevant articles of law. Was it scummy? Was it intentional? Did it reflect a bias towards Kamala Harris? Certainly it did. And that's something that George Clooney is not going to get into. So he continues.
This idea of using government to scare or fine or use corporations to make journalists smaller. Governments don't like the freedom of the press. They never have. And that goes for whether you are a conservative or a liberal or whatever side you're on, they don't like the press.
What does this play tell us about the media's ability or willingness to withstand this kind of pressure?
It's a fight that is for the ages. It will continue. You see it happening at the LA Times. You see it happening at the Washington Post, for God's sake.
This is what's so frustrating and so maddening about libs, and the reason that legitimate leftists don't want to be represented by them, want them to get out of the way, because they're hurting the causes they claim to champion. If you live in the bubble that George Clooney lives in, the Washington Post used to be credible, but now, now they're bending the knee to Trump. Whereas if you live on planet Earth, and this isn't just the left, this is a lot of MAGA folks as well. That is where the Venn diagram between us overlaps. Recognize that the media is a propaganda arm of the establishment. So, for example, did George Clooney speak out when the Washington Post smeared 200 outlets as Russian propaganda? This is back when Taibbi was still at Rolling Stone. Those of you who have been in the trenches for a while might remember this story. This was back in 2016. Last week, a technology reporter for the Washington Post named Craig Timberg ran an incredible story. It has no analog that I can think of in modern times. Headlined, Russian propaganda effort helped spread fake news during election, experts say. The piece promotes the work of a shadowy group that smears some 200 alternative news outlets as either knowing or unwitting agents of a foreign power, including popular sites like TruthDig and Naked Capitalism. George Clooney speak out about that? Did he speak out about how all of these independent media sources, many of which were left media like TruthDig, were being suppressed by a shadowy organization funded by shadowy sources, and that the Washington Post was using that as a source to make these kinds of claims? Did he say anything about Adpocalypse, which was particularly aimed at independent news gatherers like TruthDig, about how many independent left-wing creators had their whole ability to continue to do this collapse overnight because of pressure from the kinds of people who were funding those kinds of articles in the Washington Post. Now, needless to say, as I mentioned, the greatest irony is that he's doing a play about McCarthyism, and he would never say anything about this. Now, some of you might remember this clip. It's from one episode of the Maddow Show. The original file I could not find, but I did find it being covered by one Mr. Jimmy Dore on an outlet that he has since departed from.
And I'm going to play it for you. Here we go.
Vladimir Putin, Russia hates Russia, Putin, Russian, Moscow, Russian, pro-Russian, the Russian, Moscow, Russia, Putin, Russia against us, Russians, Russia against the U.S., the Russians, Russian government scheme. The Russians, Vladimir Putin, Putin and Russia, Moscow, Russia, the Russians, Putin, Russia, the Soviet Empire, the second of the 20th century's great evils, communism, Russia, assault by Russia,
Putin despises the West in general and the United States in particular, the Soviet Empire. Russia. They're the adversary. They want to bring us down, the Soviet Union.
Okay, that's all for that show. That was from one show.
From one show? That was from one episode?
That was from one episode of the Rachel Maddow Show. So
wow.
George Clooney, this is the insight someone like George Clooney will never have. Because you did not speak out about this, that is why nobody gives a shit about these outlets that you're talking about. That's why nobody gives a shit about the LA Times. Nobody gives a shit about the Washington Post. Nobody gives a shit about the New York Times. This is why people, ourselves included, who are certainly not fans of Donald Trump, would find that post hilarious. That is Trump. That is Trump's Trump card, so to speak. His ability to lampoon the hypocrisy of the liberal class, which he does very effectively, although you could say it's a pretty easy target because of these rich celebrities like George Clooney, who, as Trump points out, he was for Obama, or he was for Biden, and then supposedly there's some pretty credible reporting that Obama used him to get Biden out of the race. He wrote that op-ed. And then everyone turned on him after Kamala lost, which he deserved. And now he's out there with no sense of irony, doing a Broadway version of a play about McCarthyism while decrying attacks on outlets that were behind this Russiagate mania that in the end, I believe, and I think any objective observer would believe, helped Trump in the end, because it so completely destroyed the credibility of those same outlets. When Clooney goes on 60 Minutes and makes this kind of a critique of media, it's not helping. It's hurting. It's reminding people why they voted for Donald Trump when they see a guy like Clooney going up there and crying about how the Washington Post now is dishonest, whereas before they were doing a good job.
Yeah, when I found out that he was doing a revival of this play, I thought it was really interesting because, well, first of all, the movie itself could have been a stage play. It all basically takes place in one room, and it's very dialogue driven. So formatting wise, I think it makes sense. But it's interesting because when that movie came out in 2005, it was using the anti-communist paranoia of the McCarthy era as a metaphor for the paranoia of the day, which was the war on terror Bush era paranoia. And as we talked about with Dave DeCamp earlier in the show, and as Greenwald did a piece on this week, a lot of that same paranoia is being revived by the Trump administration, whose base really considers them a Republican sort of alternative to the George W. Bush brand. And so in that respect, it wasn't terribly surprising that this project would sort of come back into relevance. The problem is, in order to take it seriously, you have to memory hole the 20 years between when it came out as a movie in 2005 and now, because in between that period of time, there was a whole lot of McCarthyism going on that was being cheered on by the likes of George Clooney himself. So it's not that it's not relevant now. I don't think it's so much not relevant now as it is, in order to take it seriously now, you really have to Men in Black flashy thing the 20-year gap between when it first came out and now.
Exactly.
You have to just pretend that never happened.
Well, this is the problem with Clooney and liberals like Clooney. They can never admit that their own politics set the stage for fascism.
Right.
And because of that, they always miss the point. What he's saying about the press is not wrong on the face of it, but he completely misses the fact that his idea of what is the good and the true is actually the underlying problem. It's not even part of the problem. It is literally the problem. The institutions he thinks are the good institutions that need to be defended. It is their corruption and their inability to be honest with the public that made Trump look good to people. He looked honest by comparison.
Yeah. And just as a little end note to this segment, because you mentioned To Kill a Mockingbird, about how it's mean to poor white people. It's funny because the Aaron Sorkin Broadway play version of it was actually mean to poor white people. It's funny. You reminded me of a piece that there's an interview that he gave.
That's what I was thinking of. It's not an accident that they brought that back to Broadway.
Right. No, but Sorkin wrote the script for the play. So he put his elite liberal spin on the story. And in my opinion, totally, and this was what was really funny about it, because I remember he gave an interview about this, where I remember, like, you're taking one of the great heroes in all of American literature, Atticus Finch, and reducing him to a bitter lib like yourself. Because he says, in this version of the play, which seems much more of the time, Atticus realizes at the end that he was wrong about who his neighbors were, and he was very surprised by what racist bigots they were. As if the moral of the story is he should hate them more at the end. Whereas what makes Atticus such a noble hero in the book, what makes him such a great hero of literature, is the fact that he has empathy for these villainous people despite their horrible flaws. Like, one of the most beautiful lines in the book is where he's talking to his daughter Scout at the beginning, and he says, now over the course of these next few weeks, when he's got to represent this innocent black man who's going to be lynched for something he didn't do, he says, our friends are going to be saying some really horrible things about me. I want you to remember that they're still our friends. Like, that is such a beautiful line. Like, that's what makes him such a hero, right? Is the fact that even in the face of this horror, we're still going to see the humanity in these. And Sorkin just totally throws that out. And now he didn't realize what piece of shit they are.
That's where Harper Lee went wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That's where Harper Lee went wrong. Like, just totally fucking misses the whole point of the book. Because he's too invested in his liberal intellectual snobbery.
No, dude. As soon as I saw they were doing that on Broadway and that it was an Aaron Sorkin adaptation, I knew exactly where they were going with that.
Yeah, exactly. Just take one of, like, the most profound characters in literature and just reduce it to your fucking liberal bullshit. Yeah. All right. Okay. Here we go. Okay, Charlie, will you guys ever have captions for live shows? I work and it's too noisy at my job. Well, I don't think it's possible for YouTube to caption a thing in real time.
How would we do that?
Yeah, like they have to process. They generate the captions automatically after the show's over. Because how do they know what we're going to say until we say it? They can't caption it in real time. So yeah. Javier, thanks for the $4.99. Don't talk to me until I've had my Coke. Thank you, Javier. Appreciate that. Let's see here. What do we do here? EO Shush. I commented Tesla stock is taking a bloodbath, and I got a visit from Pam Bondi. Yeah, there you go. Yes, indeed. Ham Hawk, thanks for the $5. Hey, throwing in a vote for Brazil movie night since I lost my box set copy in the Altadena fire. Oh, yeah. Was that the Criterion collection? They had a nice set of that. I remember. It could have been another step, but I know that was one of the big Criterion releases. Yeah. Sorry about that, Ham Hawk. Muhammad Ali, thanks for the $4.99. It seems like activism in Hollywood skyrockets when Republicans are in power. I wonder who is paying them. There you go. Well, no, I mean it's true. Like,
I mean, it doesn't matter who's in power.
It doesn't matter, but it is true. Like the Good Night and Good Luck was so relevant when it came out because of its response to the Bush administration bullshit. And I think it's kind of relevant now, but it's just they've blown their credibility. Like they're not in a position to make that case now.
Right. And you can hear by the way he's framing it, as you say, it's you have to ignore the last 20 years to take them seriously.
Right. Exactly. Okay. All right. That is our show. Is it? Yes, it is. All right, folks. Thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate you all. Once again, last call to join the Cool Kids Club. Go to dodissidents.locals.com and sign up. It's just $5 a month. It helps us out tremendously, and it gets you all kinds of perks, like a free show tomorrow night, exclusively for paid members. We'll be on at 7 p.m. Eastern, and we will be back here on the public airwaves at 4 p.m. on Thursday. A little bit of a later show this Thursday. But thank you guys very much for being here today. We want to thank Dave DeCamp, our guest, once again. Thanks to our YouTubers. Thanks to our Rumblers, patrons, paid Substackers, paid Locals members. We'll see you tomorrow night. Everyone else, we'll see you again Thursday afternoon. Until then, thanks for hanging out with us today. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.